And we're live.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome all. It is Monday night, generational change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and this lovely lady is a little under the weather.
I am the weather.
We're gonna fight really hard to make your life as easy as possible.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
So, something big happened today.
What happened?
A rich billionaire decided that he wanted to buy a public discourse forum, so he's gonna have a little fun with it. Yeah, that's right.
Well, he claims to be a free speech absolutist, but I don't know what that means to him.
We'll see. We'll see what it means. I mean, listen.
It's not right. I don't agree with one. If these are public forums, then they're not meant to be owned by one person.
No, but what they should be is that they should be public utilities.
Yes,
that's what they should be. But in the country, as friend of the show, Jordan Cheriton of Status Quo likes to say, this is the United Corporations of America. And when the United Corporations of America, in this case, Mr. Owner of Tesla, Elon Musk, decides, yeah, I'm going to own Twitter.
And I'm totally gonna make him.
Can we talk about that thing that he put out the other day, where he was sort of making a jab at Bill Gates, like oligarch bullies in the play yard? Like he's sitting there and commenting that Bill Gates is so unappealing. First of all, when I look at Elon Musk, he really, to me, looks like the guy from North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and with the hair, with the fake weave on his head. Like, to me, Elon Musk is disgusting. I think he's disgusting. I think everything about him is disgusting. I even hate Teslas because I think of Elon Musk. So the fact that he was pointing out that Bill Gates is unappealing, it's sort of like, I said it, I'm like, your micro penis is showing very, very clearly. And I really do feel like these people must have the smallest penis. Bezos too. I can't imagine.
Well, they all have a Napoleon complex.
Oh my God,
that
Elon Musk. And if you see pictures of Elon Musk from before the weave, like from when he is this pasty, ugly, bug-eyed, very unattractive, probably very dweeby, nerdy guy, probably didn't get laid until he had money. And now he's standing there like thumping his chest, like somehow, I don't know, he's in a position to put down Bill Gates based on physical appearance. I find that ludicrous.
Yeah, he unfortunately, like many others that ultimately ascertain massive amounts of wealth and have massive egos to go with it, like to play these games of, stratego, if you will, as you like to say. And in this case, one would think, what are you spending $44 billion on? I think $44 billion can be used in a much more effective way than buying a public forum to communicate on.
Okay, it's not a public forum.
Well, it should be.
It should be.
Rephrase. And again, the conversation I think that needs to be had, obviously when our panel arrives, which will be here in a minute, the people who took over Twitter from Jack Dorsey are people that were, as we like to say, overwoke in many ways in terms of controlling speech. See, when that happens, you're going to get, this is the thing that part of woke politics, as we talk about, ends up having the reverse effect of their intended goals, which is you're going to get this backlash that's going to come along. Everyone's going to be like, oh no, I can't have this. So let's just go to the extreme end. Rather than saying, let's make Twitter a public utility, let's just have a billionaire oligarch take it over and say it's going to be about free speech. But he's already said that Twitter is now going private. It's no longer public. So there you go. That's the first thing out of the box. Didn't take long. So.
It's not, it's just, it can't be a good thing. You've got like a power hungry, I don't know. I like, these people are scary to me. They're like psychopaths.
Yeah, they are.
I know.
Unfortunately, there are people who, the biggest issue that I have with Elon Musk, probably more than anything else, is he has made such despicable comments towards Bernie Sanders. Like, that alone should tell you what his mindset is. Like, I understand he trolls, but when he comes out and says, hey, how come you're not dead yet? It's like, damn it. Hey, Joe, yeah, it definitely is, quite disturbing, to say the least. But with that said, I think we should welcome in our crew. I am sure Mike will be along any minute. It is 8:02.
What is that? What is that about?
It is about the email. So there he is. So we are, I think we'll do it in sort of whoever arrived first will
Yeah,
get the
of
attention.
course. First come, first serve.
So one of the most important topics we are going to talk about, which is obviously a byproduct of the whole situation of divide and conquer and distract away from real issues. Jen's going to point out she was good enough to watch MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News for an hour earlier today.
I'm never going to recover.
Yeah, well, to give us a skinny of exactly what's covered during that time.
There were only two things, so we could talk about those two things. But yeah.
Well, if anybody is an advocate for housing, and if there is a place where housing must be advocated for, it is in Southern California. So without further ado, for the first time, she's coming to our channel.
Yeah, well, we had a nice fleeting meeting with Mike a while back, so this is exciting.
AmyeC3, welcome to Generation.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. How are you all doing?
Good.
Doing good. It's not nighttime in LA though yet. Not yet.
No, not yet. Don't let
so
this
that's-
fool you. Don't let this background fool you. It's still broad daylight.
Your
Well-
hair is so pretty.
Oh, thank you so much.
I like that. You were wearing it up when I met you, like when I saw you before. I think you had a pony.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice.
I have I guess it works that my hair allows me to get so annoyed with it. I'll just put it up in a bun and just won't even mess with it because it can be a little high maintenance. But thank you.
Yeah. No, you look lovely. Thank
Yes.
you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you
And
so
in
much.
the next corner,
Well, you
we are
always
welcome-
do this like we're having a debate. We're not
Well,
having
I'm
a
the
debate.
sports guy here,
Okay,
so of
okay.
course I have to. And in the other corner, he is coming from across the pond, and he doesn't reveal his
I
name.
don't understand.
He
It's
has
like the
an
middle of
alias.
the night there. It's the middle of the night.
Well, we'll find out. Maybe he will reveal it. The Kavernacle. Welcome to Generational Change.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. No comments on my appearance, like Amy, so I'm a bit disappointed. But also, yeah, in terms of my name, it's not like I hide it or anything, but it's just because I've gone this long without people calling me my real name, and everyone in real life calls me Cav anyway. So
Okay.
Oh, you Cav.
what? Yeah. So why change it for online when everyone calls me my nickname anyway? So, but
No.
thanks so much for having me on. It's good.
handle.
It's good
I
to
like
see
it.
you all again.
No, it's good to see you. And I love having the perspective from people that are not in this country about this country. That's the best.
Yes.
Because we're very, very blinded in our little echo chamber here.
And that doesn't really change very much. We hear it from people in other countries that actually have nice things, and they tell us how screwed we are. And
Oh,
they're
yeah.
like, yeah, well, screw you. That's the American way, baby. And so, of course, we would be amiss without acknowledging our final and most important guest who made our connections all possible. He is also somebody who I never hesitate to mention is not only an amazing human being, but somebody who went above and beyond in the early stages of Jen's campaign for Congress in 2020 against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And he really did an amazing job of helping lift her up. He does an amazing job of lifting up a lot of important voices in the non-corporate progressive movement. So without further ado, Mike Figuerado of the Humanist Report, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hey, that was such a nice little introduction. I'm so honored. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
You are by far, like, as far as talking heads that lift people up and never punch down and always try to share, and you're the best. You are.
Oh, well,
'Cause
I mean,
there's
so much. I
many-
try.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly try. I try to feel like, if you have a big platform, then you have to try to use it for good. And I try, so I'm human. So sometimes I'll mess up. Sometimes I'll miss the mark. But, I try, and I appreciate your acknowledgement. It's nice to see everyone here as well. Nice to see Cav and Amy as well. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, great. Awesome. And I'm sorry, Mario, we did go a little early and we did miss my Seinfeld intro. Sorry.
And I'm dressed all dapper because I was doing some TikTok stuff earlier. This is the first for our show, so we'll see how it works out.
Oh.
But at the panel's request, if you want Bernie, if you want Trump, if you want Bill, just let me know, and we'll have a little fun as we go on.
for
But
God's
obviously, the most obvious place to start, of course, is we are living in a 1984 dystopia. We all know that. So, of course, what better way to spend $44 billion than on buying Twitter? I mean, what better use of your money?
What could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Whoever wants to take it first.
Any
Obviously,
comments about Mr. Musk?
yeah. It's pretty extreme, but hey, it is 1984 come to life, baby.
I'll go first. I don't mind, because I was speaking about this with some of my friends today. It's obviously, if you look at the boards of like places like Twitter, I think there's like a Saudi prince on the board of Twitter and everything like that. So it's not really so much like the rich are taking over. I think for Elon Musk, it's more that he's completely unhinged, and like for someone who's the richest man in the world, has so many followers, he cannot take criticism or any challenge to anything he does. And he just has, it feels like someone who just didn't have that attention growing up and has finally got it and is still reacting like he's someone who I guess doesn't have that admiration. And I guess the main thing, something I've been seeing lately is what I can't really understand is so many Republicans in America absolutely love Elon Musk. And I read an article the other day about someone saying we should change the laws so Elon Musk can run for president for the Republican Party. And it's just like, it's just like, the worship of the richest man in the world is just so infuriating. I've covered Elon Musk so much on my channel, but then just like people ignore so much of the bad things he does. Like, isn't he being sued right now by Tesla workers for racially segregating the Tesla plant? And that's the guy now who owns Twitter. And the main thing I was thinking, I'm not going to make this too long, Ken Klippenstein is like literally #1 target for Elon Musk for like always posting that Ghislaine Maxwell photo. So I have no doubt in my mind there's going to be weird stuff going on, especially with left-wing accounts being banned under Elon Musk's Twitter, rather than what he says, like, I want all my critics here. You know, I seriously do not think he does. I think he's just insanely fragile, and now he has the platform to, I guess, create his own version of free speech on Twitter.
I love that because you said what I said, but with a really good accent. It sounded so much better. He is a very small man, small man. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll let Amy go first. I have a lot to say, but I'll let Amy go first.
I think that Elon Musk is just an actual rich version of what Donald Trump kind of portrayed him as, that tough man, kind of no nonsense, will coup anyone we have to in pursuit of the minerals necessary to build our batteries for Tesla's EVs. I mean, he really does have the same kind of tendencies as Donald Trump, but he is a little less, I would say, in tune with the amount of, or he is becoming more aware of the amount of pure, unadulterated hatred that he looks to minimize. And I think this power move of buying Twitter is a way to really establish what he is trying to convey, in that whenever you are rich in this country, super rich, you can be without criticism and you can buy the necessary power to accumulate not only just the wealth, but the political power that leads to action that tends to favor the billionaire class. And I would love to know how people would respond to having that same kind of energy about making changes to the law to allow for Ilhan Omar to run for president, and to see that immediate hypocrisy, because they would lose their minds.
We can't have a black woman with a hijab. No, we can't.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, this is essentially the final evolution of the Karen, where rather than talking to the manager, they just buy the whole company. Like I feel like that's what we're seeing. And what everyone says here is absolutely on the mark. Like, this is really about him being extremely petty and just wanting to silence his critics. I mean, sure, he's saying, I welcome my critics, but I'll put that to the test and see how long I can go posting the Ghislaine Maxwell photo after underneath every single reply, and see if I get banned. Who knows? So we'll test it. I'll probably forget about it, but I definitely will try. I'll make a concerted effort. But I mean, this whole thing, what I hate is that there's this fake conversation around freedom of speech happening simultaneously, and this is how he's legitimizing this. Like, really, this is another huge billionaire taking over an influential American institution. I mean, it's akin to when Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post, how horrifying that was, and the implications of it, So this is what happens in a late stage capitalist society. And you shouldn't just think, oh, well, this is good because one supposedly benevolent dictator who I like is taking over. Well, I made this point in my video about this. Imagine if it were Warren Buffett or George Soros. Would you be saying the same thing? Even if he said, I assure you that I'm not going to silence my critics. I'm going to support, the freedom of speech on this platform. No, it's complete bullshit. And he doesn't care about freedom of speech at all. There's going to be terms of service. And somebody, I think it was Hunter Avalon, made a really great point. Yeah, it was Hunter. He made a good point about the fact that, like, if Elon really does, like, strip away the TOS and just lets anything, happen on the website, he'll bring it back immediately. And we know this because all these right-wing, supposedly free speech platforms have tested this out. And the entire platform devolves into this, like, hellhole with slurs and targeted harassment. So you have to have that to make people want to come on these platforms in the first place. But I mean, if these people who are very, like, concerned about freedom of speech make it their number one priority, then they should be standing up against these anti-BDS laws that are explicitly in violation of the First Amendment. They could respond to the crackdowns on gender expression in Texas, in Florida. Don't say gay, that's a First Amendment violation. Banning books. There's so many free speech issues, but, like, whether or not your friend was banned on Twitter for saying something that was, like, racist or memeing a little bit too close to the sun, not necessarily the free speech issue of the day. And so that's why I just wanted to, like, put that into perspective for people, because this is not about free speech, contrary to popular belief. This is about large companies and very wealthy people consolidating the markets. These elites buying up any avenues of potential criticism. Jeff Bezos with the Washington Post, Elon Musk buying up Twitter to silence his critics. I mean, this man literally in 2016 canceled the Tesla order for a blogger who was mean to him. He criticized him. I think he wrote "shame on Elon Musk" or something. And then Elon Musk literally canceled his Tesla order. So this is someone who's extremely petty, and this is what he's using the platform for. Whether or not he'll change it, like, extensively, I have no idea. Perhaps he'll implement some changes that are good. Who knows? Maybe he'll do bad as well. I don't know. Like, for me, I don't necessarily care because I try to limit myself from Twitter because it's such a toxic place. But the impact that it has on society cannot be ignored. Like, this is a giant social media platform, and the fact that it's in the hands of one billionaire who could do whatever he wants now, he has total control, it should alarm everyone. But instead, you have a lot of people celebrating because that's the world that we live in.
And because of the hyper-partisan divide, Mike, you nailed it in regards to Bezos, who is on the neoliberal side of things. So the Democrats, the elite Democrats, are like, oh, I don't have a problem with Jeff Bezos. So democracy dies in darkness. So everybody on the right is losing their mind, or most people in general would lose their mind about Jeff Bezos owning the Washington Post. How could you have any other different opinion regarding Elon Musk buying Twitter? It's the same thing.
No, actually, this is worse. Yeah. I think it's worse because this is everybody participates in Twitter. And Washington Post is one-way communication. And those, in terms of editorials, they're always going to be biased to some extent. And I was completely like repulsed by the idea of Bezos buying the Washington Post. But Twitter, I think it's worse because it's much more of what should be a public forum than, say, the Washington Post is.
And then the other thing you have to remember is that you kind of have a limited amount of people that read the Washington Post. Almost everybody's on Twitter, even if they're not using it that frequently. Like, we use Twitter as a means to connecting with people. For the life of me, I don't know how people spend hours and hours a day online getting into arguments with people. Like, that is amazing how you can do that. And look, I'm sure people probably do it on the job. If the job isn't, it could be boring and you need to fill time, but my goodness, it's completely lost its way. And who the hell knows what's going to happen now? I mean, Elon's made it clear that it's already going private. Like, it's no longer public.
I have a question for you, Amy. Yeah. How many people could we house for $44 billion?
So there has been some, I think, rumors floating around that we could end homeless for around 20 billion, but that would be like upfront costs just to get everybody housed. But even then, it would be, a really good, down payment, if you will, on a homeless program that could be publicly funded, it would definitely cover the first year's cost.
Yeah.
If that gives you an idea of
Yeah,
how
no,
much
it
money
does.
is.
It's ridiculous to me. The whole thing is ridiculous.
How much that's pretty much the HUD's budget in the fiscal year of 2022.
And not only that, but think about this, if Elon truly understood what it means to be a living legend, then he could do something like end homelessness, and then they would build statues to him. No one is building statues to this guy because again, there are people who think like he invented Tesla, that he invented the electric car. It's like, no, he didn't do that. His motivation is clearly financial. And while obviously we do need to move to a clean energy economy, and we are very adamant about that, here's a guy whose interest is nothing of the sort. Because if it was, I think we would have heard by now that one of his main motivations to running Tesla is so that we can move to a green energy economy. I don't know, guys. Has Elon ever said that? Because I don't think he has.
I think that Elon wants to create an entire fleet of automated Teslas that just drive themselves around to replace all forms of public transit. That's what he has spoken out and envisioned, and he wants to just monopolize the entire transportation sector.
Yeah. But what he's planning here, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but he and the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, Dean Trantelis, have decided they're going to put in an underground shuttle transport to take rich people, because nobody else will be able to afford to use it, from downtown Fort Lauderdale to the beach so that they don't have to have traffic. And meanwhile, the infrastructure in Fort Lauderdale is crumbling. They have sewage in their streets when it rains a lot, but they're going to invest in some sort of shuttle transport for wealthy people to get to the beach faster.
That's a great use of money.
Wow.
That's like modern day Robert Moses bullshit of
unfortunately,
using power to give privileges.
Florida politics is a very crappy subject to talk about, but of course we can talk about it. We are both very adamant that with the trajectory that this country is going right now, that two possible Florida residents are going to be the next president in a very short time. Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis. Pick one, because they're both equally crappy and very.
I don't think they're equally crappy.
Maybe not, but dictatorially speaking, they definitely have a lot of the same elements. And we've been saying that we're living in an oligarchy for a number of years now, but I think it's becoming more and more obvious. And so with everything that's going on with this war on Disney or whatever it is, we say all the time, the biggest reason why DeSantis is able to get away with what he's able to get away with is because the Democratic Party in Florida is almost completely feckless and ineffective.
No, they don't. They're non-existent. Yeah.
And they have a lot, and technically they do have more, up until recently anyway, more registered Democrats than Republicans. But the way this party has been run for the past several years, as we've really ventured into this, there is no, and I hate the word resistance, but the way that DeSantis is allowed to ascend has as much to do not just with the fact that his authoritarianism is embraced by millions around the country, but because there's no alternative. We do not present any real alternative here in Florida. And if you think you need any more proof, it looks very likely like the Democratic ticket for governor is going to be the same one it was 8 years ago. That's not good. Just saying.
We've made so much progress here. Cav, let me ask you, what do you hear? Oh, I mean, I know you hear the same news we hear, but this whole culture war between DeSantis and Disney, which is obviously a big thing here, has now turned into something that is going to penalize the regular people that live in the areas surrounding Disney World. So it's like some sort of pissing match that's now going to hurt regular people. It's not going to hurt the people that make money at Disney. They'll be fine. So I'm just curious, like, what do you hear about that over there?
Well, it's not so much what I hear about in the UK. It's more that I cover a lot of nerd media on my channel in terms of, not sure if you're aware, most people who discuss movies, comics, and video games on YouTube are very right-wing. And recently they've been promoting DeSantis a lot. And before they used to say they hated politics, like keep politics out of my media. But now it's like, we love DeSantis because he's standing up to woke Disney. And this is something I spoke about on Twitter, and I know because I talk about class reductionism a tiny bit, because I think a lot of people believe that everyone fundamentally hates corporations and corporate exploitation, and if we only like channeled that a bit more, and maybe someone on the right like DeSantis could channel that, but I don't actually think that's what he's doing, especially when I hear these people. He's attacking Disney as a Trojan horse to attack transgender and LGBT rights. He's not attacking Disney because he hates corporations. But even though you can maybe, you're talking about, I forgot the exact name for it, that basically that territory of Florida that Disney basically runs.
It's Reedy Creek.
Yeah. And it basically runs as its own small government. And obviously, like, I completely disagree with that. It's pretty insane. Like, it's like an old mining town or something like that. But at the same time, DeSantis isn't attacking Disney because they're a corporation that, treats its workers badly, or the CEOs, exploit the labor of the employees there. He's doing it because it's a cultural war issue against mainly trans people, but obviously it ties in nicely with the don't say gay thing. It's just all about demonizing Disney. And it's, you probably saw on Twitter, okay, groomer is the big thing. I covered it a couple of weeks ago. And loads of people in my comments are calling me a groomer because you're saying that maybe children should understand that trans and gay people exist. But that's the whole war at the moment. And like you were saying, just to tie it back in terms of the UK, I don't think many people know who DeSantis is, but I do actually think DeSantis might be worse than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump, just because he doesn't have any coherent ideology, he was just like a useful mark for old neocons from the Bush administration to do what they wanted. But with DeSantis, I'm a bit more worried about him specifically because he does have maybe not a coherent ideology in terms of he really, really believes these things, but he presents it in a way that's much more palatable to a lot of ordinary people. Unlike Donald Trump, who, even if I think this is the big thing in the UK, a lot of people didn't like Donald Trump in the UK, not so much because they hated his politics, but they hated who he was. If you had someone like DeSantis, who's more like, I don't know, like a gentleman, is more like a smarmy politician, like just a stereotypical one, I think he can actually get a lot more done once he's in power. And the way he frames it is often smart because he acts like he's standing up to like the corporations or the woke left who have taken over all the corporations, rather than, I don't think he has that appeal maybe broadly with people who just hate capitalism or something like that. But I do think if he got into power, he would be a lot worse than Donald Trump, especially because from what I'm seeing at the moment with Joe Biden's popularity, it doesn't look like the Democrats are going to be having any good elections leading up to 2024.
Oh, no. It's going to be ugly, and especially here in Florida. I don't hate him as much as people do, but remember, we had Rick Scott for 8 years here. So he is the most evil, criminal, despicable human being that I can even think of. So coming after that, we have a low bar here, very low bar. But I agree, he is smarter than Trump, and he's brilliant politically. DeSantis is brilliant. Yes. The fact that what you're saying is that people are now hearing of him because he's standing up to woke Disney, it's like you're watching like a master class in his, running for president in 2024.
And again, this all has to do with the fact that the Democratic Party would rather screw non-corporate progressives than to allow the inevitable takeover.
Yeah.
We put out something on social media the other day that you see all of the normie Democrats constantly crapping on the GOP, but the second they need GOP voters to stop non-corporate candidates like Nina Turner or India Walton, oh, you better believe they're there to get them. And they won't hide it. They're very adamant. And they'll go so far as to call somebody like Nina Turner an anti-Semite. And that's why we're going to Cleveland this weekend. we gotta bring the troops. Gotta help her out, and that is really what it's about.
Yeah.
The ascension of somebody like DeSantis, I think, directly coincides with the fact that populism is here to stay. The American people are hip to the game now. They know how they're being played for fools and are no longer going to be fooled. And they're going to get it one way or the other. I said all the way back in 2015, I said, you're going to have a political revolution in this country. You're either going to get it peacefully with Bernie or you're going to get it violently with Trump. You just make the choice which way it's going to be, because this neoliberalism of the past 40 plus years, it's going to end. Yeah. And the question is, how's it going to end? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, the revolution really, in my opinion, began with the presidency of Ronald Reagan. Because he found a way to get people to think that all of the good things that FDR did were actually bad. And that really, we haven't shifted from that Reagan paradigm since. In fact, Democrats, they realigned to meet what Reagan was kind of selling with, Clinton and whatnot, the triangulation third way strategy. It's why Democrats today are still so bad, because they were supposed to be like the antidote to neoliberalism. They were supposed to push back against the Republican Party's neoliberal policies, but instead they embraced a little bit of neoliberalism. But once you open the door, I mean, capitalism is like a virus, right? So if you start saying, well, rather than big government, maybe we can have a company take care of issue X, or, a private response to this. And then before you know it, all of society is commodified: housing, education. Just on Fox News today, I'm not sure if you caught it, there was, I think it was Kennedy. She was talking about how we should just get rid of public schooling, essentially, in lieu of private schooling. So the way that Republicans do politics nowadays it's really interesting to watch. And it's kind of happening all around the world. Like, you see the same type of dichotomy with France, for example, like with the election of Marie Le Pen and Macron, where she's like this psychopathic far right winger, frothing at the mouth, shitting her pants, and people are just applauding like seals. They love it. But then not a lot of people are motivated, because on the opposite side, you have Macron, who's like this neoliberal elitist type of centrist who hasn't really governed in a way that helps normal people. So, we see the same thing here in the United States. So like with Republicans, the more cruel that they get, so long as they cloak that cruelty in some sort of populist rhetoric, then it lands. Like Ron DeSantis, as you all were talking about, like with the Disney thing, like he's really trying to push a transphobic agenda, but he's using populist-ish talking points to say, oh, I'm going after corporations. Now, at face value, you see him penalizing Disney and you think, don't care. Disney's a terrible company. They're union busters. They treat their workers like garbage. So, if he's going to penalize Disney, that's okay. Let them fight. Two evil entities, right? Fighting at one another. But really what this is in actuality is this like tax scheme that's going to price people out of that particular area. And you wouldn't know this because we're all caught, we're caught up arguing about Disney being woke, and we're not looking at what's actually going on. So it's weird. What happens is Republicans are evil, but they're more politically savvy. And Democrats at this point, they are complicit, I feel like. This is kind of like a tangent, but I mean, for, a political group that is essentially a death cult at this point, that's what Republicans are. They're a death cult. And Republican Party voters, they are extremely uninformed. Democratic Party voters are as well. Like, all of Americans are uninformed, to be clear. But to not actually capitalize on this unique moment and win voters, to explain how obviously cruel what the Republicans are doing is, to explain how openly hypocritical they are. They were all anti-cancel culture in 2021. Now I guess cancel culture is back in 2022. It's a failure of the Democratic Party. And part of it is, the Democratic Party's ethos is to just maintain the status quo. They're not, trying to forge some sort of a political revolution. They want to keep things the way that it is. They're doing that at the behest of their donors. Whereas Republicans, they've been waging this revolution since Reagan, and essentially what they want, not all of them will proclaim this, but they want to take us into a theocratic authoritarian state. That's what they want. And so when it comes to like this question of Ron DeSantis versus Donald Trump, I've really gone back and forth because I don't know who's worse. On one hand, Donald Trump is like the biggest, most present threat to democracy because of the way that he says lies about the election in 2020 and gets so many people to not just go along with that, but think, maybe him being a dictator is acceptable. I mean, Michael Flynn, he worked for the White House and said, why can't we have, or he was like, we should be able to have a Myanmar-style coup here in the United States. It's insane. But yet with Ron DeSantis, even though he doesn't necessarily wear the authoritarianism on his sleeve, like he could get the American people to believe that having a government official come to their homes and shove like a turd down their throats is preferable because of the way he sells it. It's just like, listen, this is the way we got to, defeat this woke agenda. Is everyone needs to get slapped across the face twice. And then, the liberals will be mad. Like he finds some way to sell the most horrendous policies, and it's insane. So, I mean, regardless of who wins, we all lose. And it's evident that there's no, viable opposition to counter this. So we kind of just get to watch all of the, ships sink. And, what do we do in the meanwhile? Laugh, meme about it? I guess so. But it's just, it's horrendous. It's so horrible.
I actually find when we talk like that, and especially what you're saying, not only, I don't find the Democrats just complicit. I think that there's more nefarious there, and they get to just hang out the other side as the bad guys. And I actually find that worse, not in terms of their ideology or platform, but in terms of how they're acting in the interest of this country. I find that worse. We don't have an ideology of our own. We're just going to sit there and be like a Mick Resistance and do nothing, and let the people that actually do have a nefarious agenda just do whatever they want. I mean, I think it's actually worse.
And what you see on the other side, which is actually significant in this case, is they're all working in concert. And Amy can definitely speak to this, because one of the, or maybe the most overlooked thing with what DeSantis is doing with Disney is they are, listen, Disney's been one of the biggest tax cheats forever. And now all of a sudden, he's saying, well, we're totally going to make Disney pay for their back taxes. No, numbnuts, that's not what you're doing. You're going after Orange and Osceola County, which is where Disney is essentially housed. These are two true blue counties, because everything's political these days. It's all about, who are the voters in this particular area. And so for the 1.2, 1.3 billion in back taxes, Disney's not going to pay for them. DeSantis is having the taxpayers in these areas pay for them. And guess what? Some of the most expensive housing by far in the United States is in Orlando, Florida. So you're not fooling anybody with this. Disney and DeSantis, they're all in this together, guys. Like, do you not understand? This is just a distraction.
There's just going to be more homeless people now.
It's just a distraction. So Amy, please hop in.
So in South Florida, one of the worst affordability epidemics has taken place as a direct result of, COVID-19 leading to this corporate takeover of housing, where we saw private equity firms kind of like prepare for massive mergers and acquisitions. Blackstone has already purchased wholesale real estate companies in Miami-Dade County and Port St. Lucie County. Basically, Ron DeSantis is taking millions of real estate lobby money, 7 million, I believe, just in this current cycle alone. And now rent has increased by over 50% in Southern Florida, as well as Tampa. And people are literally just getting priced out. There is no real plan for recourse or to provide some sort of preservation for those who are making less money, who are inevitably going to be priced out. In fact, the collusion there between DeSantis and the real estate lobby obviously holds firm. There's an entire affordable complex. There's an affordable housing complex in Fort Lauderdale that is going to be completely demolished, and condos they're going to be replaced. So they're going to be replaced with $1 million condos. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I get really freaking excited whenever I think about this. Sorry, I can barely talk.
The property tax is going to make it so much worse for people where it's already really bad. And I, as someone who grew up here, I didn't have a problem with the idea of going after Disney and taking away their special tax status. I was at first thinking, yeah, you go, like that actually did seem palatable. But when you see how it's going to actually affect people, it's not the right way to go, for sure.
No.
Isn't there a state mandate that does not allow local governments to impose a rent control standard at a more local level?
Yeah.
Too?
Which is really weird too, because Florida is a county strong state.
It's weird.
So,
but not when it is with civil liberties, but it's not when it comes to things like money, because then they're going to do whatever they can to protect the bottom line. I mean, it's just like you said, there's collusion between the real estate developers, and that's all connected. They don't care how many people get homeless. They don't care.
And so many of our major issues that we're fighting on are, there's just so many common sense solutions. Like public education should not be funded by property taxes. That's your biggest problem right there. If it was funded by state taxes, that would immediately solve the problem. And again, I think there are a lot of people who just, there's a huge there's huge psychological implications about how people like to look at others and say, well, I'm more successful than you are. I think, as Cav, you were talking about, there's two unhealthy obsessions in our culture. We have an unhealthy obsession with the rich and an unhealthy obsession with celebrity. And when you combine those two things together, you get a President Donald Trump. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who don't recognize their own hypocrisy. You can hate Trump, but then you idolize these other people, and they may not be as rude or crass as Donald Trump, but they're just as bad. And their intentions in terms of keeping us subjugated it goes without saying. And so I think if we're going to talk about anything like electorally related, I mean, I think Nina Turner has an excellent chance to win this race this time around. They have, again, we're pretty close to her, and our understanding is that they have really made a conscious effort to make this really all about the ground game, which is how you win. The community of Lakewood is now part of the district, and evidently was a place that was very strong for Bernie in 2016 and 2020. She has a handful of endorsements that have come in from city council members. Those are the type of endorsements you really want. You want support from those types of local officials. And in addition to that, her performance in what you would call the debate, if you will, because there isn't going to be one, but the closest thing to it, kind of like when Jen was doing her thing with Debbie, is you get interviewed by the local newspaper. And so the Cleveland Plain Dealer held an interview process, and Nina put on a masterclass of how you deal with this, with frankly corporate shitbags, because that's what they are. And so I think if she were to win, much like what's happening right now with Chris Smalls and the Amazon workers and the whole labor movement revitalization, which everything we talk about is through labor. That's where it comes from. But I think if you had a leader like Nina in the halls of Congress, that's where that whole inside-outside strategy comes through. And that's why I think elections like that are very important, despite the nihilism that I'm sure you guys have seen on the left that is very, very big.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone who wants to share their thoughts on the upcoming election, which is just a week away from tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we're Nina fans, so we'll put our bias right out there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll let Mike go first, and I can bounce off that because I'm sure Mike's been following it a lot closer than I have. I do remember the last one, and I kind of want to talk because I was just reading up on it. But then I'll let Mike speak first.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the nihilism because that is really deflating to me. Just because I kind of feel like I'm one of those people who I kind of get amped up when I see other people amped up. And just like the whole defeatist thinking that I see on the left, to where it's like, what's the point? She's gonna lose. It's so it's understandable. Because how many times have we seen progressive after progressive, run a really good campaign and then lose? But the thing that I always tell myself that kind of keeps me going is, they want you to quit. And when I say they, I mean the establishment, because then they don't have to worry at all. Like if you just check out and say it's too difficult, I'm done, then you give them what they want. So like my whole thinking is, even if every single candidate who I root for loses, so long as I'm annoying the Democratic Party, I'm petty enough to take refuge in that fact and enjoy that. As long as they hate me and I make their lives a little bit more difficult by supporting these progressive candidates, then that to me is good enough. It's not necessarily like the great galvanizer that gets people amped up, but whatever you can hang on to that gets you motivated for these candidates is important. But don't specifically support high profile races. Look to who's running in your area and get involved that way, because it's really easy to get distracted at these really big races. Like we have, Nina Turner, and we have Amy Vilela, which they're amazing candidates who we're all obviously rooting for. But really try to make a difference in your neck of the woods, because that's where you can be the most impactful, right? You might not have resources, but just simply doing some volunteer work for them, even if it's something simple, you can not only feel as if you're accomplishing something, but network with other people who think like you, who have the same goals as you. And that in and of itself is enough to kind of inspire confidence. I mean, for me, just going to town halls pre-COVID, of course, with, my representative, afterwards, I'd always stay for an hour just talking to people who are there, just bitching and moaning about different issues. But it feels so good to meet and hey, we should start a local DSA chapter or something, or do this or something like that. Just like speaking with like-minded people and organizing there, that's like the start of something really good. It starts like with, organizing your workplace, forming a union that way, just talking to people there. So yeah, that's my little 2 cents about it. I don't have much else to say, but I'll pass it to Cav.
Cav, did you want to say something about Nina?
Yeah, two things, just because I want to relate it back to the UK as well. But the Nina thing, it feels very depressing, because I feel like there's a brainwashing in American politics generally, which results in you having like such a far right Overton window where there's just like a things everyone has to agree on. And I think it happens here in the UK as well. But I think, as you guys are talking about, like neoliberalism has changed it a bit here in the UK, because I was seeing people saying that Macron is preferable to the left-wing candidate in the French election because the left-wing candidate doesn't like the European Union, right? But it's like this globalized view that Americans have, that European Union, NATO, all this stuff, they can't do any wrong. Like, surely that's a good thing. Like, there's no criticism there. And I think, like you were talking about the Amazon thing with even the Chris Smalls, he goes on Tucker Carlson, half the left-wing people like are having a go at him. And even if he fundamentally didn't like AOC, I wouldn't give a shit. Like, he's doing something great. You should support him. So I think there's a problem sometimes. It's like, what's acceptable? And that's how I think like Joe Biden kind of like coats a lot of his more sinister policies. It's like, it's a really good thing that Joe Biden pays lip service to, like, trans rights and, rights, labor stuff and everything. But at the same time, it's not sincere, because he has the economic policies that don't back those things up. So in regard to like Nina Turner's past election, you were talking about her being labeled an anti-Semite, then like pro-Israel PACs came in and dumped a bunch of cash into the race as well. And it's just like, for a lot of people, I think, even in America, people who might be inclined to maybe like economic policies that a lot of Americans would agree with, is sometimes like subverted. And we saw it in the UK with anti-Semitism, things like weaponized anti-Semitism, like this person, because they are not the most zealous Israel supporter, they must be bad or something like that. And it's like character assassinations. And I think it takes hold a lot, because how many of you guys have seen in America, like, people who support so much good progressive social policies, but they will never back it up with the economic policies. So it's like trans rights, support Ukraine, Black Lives Matter, but then it's like, we'll support someone who will actually help through economic means, and it's like they get all like cold feet about that. So Nina Turner, like, obviously, because I like Bernie Sanders and I was following that campaign a lot, is someone who would make such a great person in electoral politics. And when you're more progressive, you view her like policies. And even with the Israel stuff, I was reading her takes on Israel, and I was like, this isn't even like that controversial. I can't believe she was even labeled an anti-Semite. Like, there's people like myself who go far, far deeper on a criticism. And it just shows you that people like her, I think, fundamentally scare the Democrats, because I don't know what you guys think of the Democratic Party. It feels like, and I've seen people say this, it felt like a conspiracy for ages. It feels like they're meant to lose. Like, you can all see, like, Joe Biden, he only won because people hated Trump. The same with Macron just recently. He only won because people don't want to elect like someone on the far right. But that only works for so long. And if you don't do anything, like, everyone blaming Joe Biden for the gas prices, and it's like, it's not necessarily all his fault, but it's like that stuff will stick. And what is he giving people? You could, and you guys were saying about Elon Musk building statues for him if he did something good, like end homelessness or end poverty. Joe Biden could do many of the same things. He could end student debt if he wanted. He could legalize. I think he could legalize marijuana federally, like just through presidential orders and stuff like that. He could do all those things, and people would love him forever. He doesn't do any of those things because he's got some sort of liberal mind virus, which makes him think like, I cannot actually do this because it's too controversial, or he is just in the pocket of his donors, which I find really weird because he's so old. You'd think he'd be like, fuck it, I'm so old now, let me just do something people will love me for forever. But instead it's like, no, got to be like I'm, in the 90s still and play this game of politics. It's very, very frustrating. And tying it back to the UK, we have this at the moment because the left wing, the Labour Party, are being purged. And Mike, what you were saying about Duma, I'm literally one of the biggest doomers because there is no hope for the UK. Like, you guys have hope because Joe Biden tolerates the progressives. He even tries to get them involved as like a PR thing. In the UK, the Labour right hate the Labour left, and they're kicking them out. So if Keir Starmer gets elected instead of Boris Johnson, I don't care. I'm totally out of electoral politics. But that's why I like the Amazon Union thing so much, because it's like you can change things. without, you know, stupid elections and MPs and all this stuff. So that's why, like, for me personally, I've checked out of UK politics. I still follow it, but I just hate it. But then, like you're saying, the thing that is happening in the UK, I think, is coming for the US because the Republicans are just going to crush the Democrats. And is that it for like American democracy, like with the gerrymandering they're going to do? And it just feels like, Mike, I don't know how you can be optimistic at all, but I don't want to bring the whole vibe down.
I'm not. I mean,
when you bring up Joe Biden, you know, today he endorses probably the worst Democrat in Oregon in Kurt Schrader. So it's like, you can see why things are the way that they are. Like you said, they are paid to lose. They could do so much. The president has the authority to cancel student debt, to decriminalize cannabis and expunge all nonviolent drug offenders' records. Maybe the most important thing of all, he can implement the Defense Production Act and build a clean energy grid in maybe just a few years. Like, the opportunity is there to do all of these things. There could be a national rent control crisis in this country, which we have right now. You know, we know that there are a lot of things that can be done, but he's simply not doing them. And I think it's a combination of his conservative philosophy and the fact that it is the United Corporations of America. Corporate special interests have captured our government, pure and simple.
Yeah.
I also have to point out, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, Joe Biden literally tweeted that healthcare is a human right. He tweeted this. And like, I saw this and I'm like, oh my God, like this is going to make my head explode. Like, the Democratic Party, they're so insufferable. And like, I used to think that it was overly cynical to believe that they want to lose. But I feel like you can't come to any other conclusion. You can't see what they're doing or not doing and logically deduce anything otherwise. I mean, like, when it comes to the issue of don't say gay and this whole grooming thing, like, Republicans have effectively revived the gays or pedophile myth. And when Vox did a piece asking Democrats like Hakeem Jeffries, Tim Ryan, how are you going to respond to these new smears? Because this is very clearly like they're winning, right? I mean, don't say gay is popular. So how are you going to respond? And the answer was, we're not going to respond. Hakeem Jeffries was like, well, in response to Marjorie Greene calling, you know, anyone who supported Ketanji Brown Jackson a pedophile, you know, that's crazy. Who thinks Marjorie Greene is a serious person? Like, that's literally their response. And so they've chosen not just to not fight, but also just kind of just sit there and I guess keep the seats warm for Republicans until November. And this is my thinking. This is my theory. Okay. It's all fueled by cynicism. But I think that Democrats, they want to keep their own seats in power. They like being in a position of influence, but they want their party to be the minority party because it's real. There's so much pressure when your base is saying, oh, we need Medicare for all, we need this, that. And then anything that you could implement would offend your donors. Now, think of how insane we've gone in this country where the moderate, like Build Back Better, this is incrementalism. This is a moderate policy that moderates should, in theory, support. But moderates like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema blocked it. And even if it weren't for Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema, it'd be John Tester, right? So the moderates wouldn't even let the moderate policies through. So we've fallen so far in this country that I can only deduce that Democrats will feel like a huge feeling of relief when they lose, the ones that keep their seats, because now it's like, I don't have to come up with some weird excuse as to why we're not doing what we should be doing. Now I can just say, look at what the Republicans did. And I get it, right? The Republicans are batshit insane. Like, they are psychopaths. Like, we're one step away from them spitting on people publicly and like shitting their pants. They're insane. So, you know, I understand why that appeals to people, but you're not just going to win back voters and galvanize people by saying, look at how crazy they are. Because we're so polarized as a country, they can do the same thing and it works. They can say, oh, look at how woke the Democrats have become. And it works. So you have to fight. And the Democratic Party has chosen to not fight in any way, shape, or form. Not even the basic things like incrementalism before. I mean, God, I remember the days when I was complaining about incrementalism. I mean, to even have incrementalism would be positive at this point. Like, we are going backwards rapidly in this country. And there's no depth to where we won't sink. Like, people think, oh, this is as bad as it's going to get. Oh, trust me, it could always get worse. This is America we're talking about here. Mike, so, you know,
I feel that so hard. I feel that so hard because with the UK, I've been thinking over the last couple of years, this is so bad. And I'm like, we're literally going to become Hungary, Poland, or even Russia in 20 or 30 years. And I can't believe it. And it's like Labour has the same problem. Tony Blair hates Keir Starmer, apparently, according to a new report, because he's such a bad politician. Because the Tories in this country are the most brazenly corrupt political party we've ever had. Like, rub it in your face, we're so corrupt. And he's such a bad politician. He won't nail them every single time. And for all Tony Blair, war criminal, should be in prison. He used to absolutely destroy the Tories for fun in Parliament when he was in opposition, and even when he was Prime Minister. And like with the Democrats, it's like, you could fight. You have so many people who will back you up, but you don't let the people who will fight for you, like Nina Turner, for example. That's a fighter right there. You don't let those people into the halls of power, so you end up with Nancy Pelosi's, who would, like, don't even want to support Congress people having, buying stocks and stuff because she has so many. It's like, it feels so frustrating, especially when you're reading it through a Twitter screen and you're like, I wish I was there to own these people because it's so easy. But the only conclusion you can come to, of course, is that a lot of these people, they don't want to do it. And to another facet of it, the revolving doors of American politics, and to a lesser extent UK politics, although I would say it's a bit different, is that they're lining up a cushy job afterwards. How good does it look to be in Congress in the minority, lecturing some CEO about how bad they are, or some, I don't know, Wells Fargo or stuff like that? Elizabeth Warren, she has this great reputation. What has she actually done? But then in the future, that might get her a nice cushy job because look how great you are. You fought the banks and stuff. I mean, she has done some things. I'm being a bit mean, but like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's a complete, even like the squad and stuff. How much do we love them for what they say? But when it comes to actual action, because they've been in the minority or even sidelined in the Democratic Party, what have they actually done? And again, that's what I think it is for a lot of them. Build up a very good image of yourself, and then when your term's done, you get kicked off or you just leave, go into the private sector. Everyone's going to love you. Go get a nice cushy job. You'll be like absolutely loaded for the rest of your life.
And Amy, if you can just comment, a perfect example is the San Francisco Chronicle put out an article today saying that California has an aging population, which is what makes Dianne Feinstein the perfect representative.
Wow.
Look, there are plenty of older senators like Bernie Sanders, for example, who's doing great. Dianne Feinstein just is not doing so well. And I think that maybe people would be a little bit more charitable if she didn't literally get down to eye level with kids who were like, will you support the Green New Deal? And she was like, no, bitch, fuck off. You don't know anything. That's the way that she has responded to things like the climate crisis, where people have looked to her for leadership and to take this seriously, to which she has responded, literally, fuck off, kids. I can't be bothered with this. You don't know what you're talking about. So Dianne Feinstein is just one of the many examples of Democrats who are considered to be the more palatable options, who have loads of experience. Diane's been in politics her entire life, and she is the ideal Democrat. Nina Turner, for example, is not, because she not only educates people with her theory of change, she has a way of communicating and invoking her knowledge of just how bad the Democrats are and how it's neoliberal policies that is kind of holding together the hegemonic order that she can speak to. And I think that is the real threat, that Nina Turner does have that capacity to make people understand just how bad the Democrats are. I don't think AOC will go that far. Nina Turner does not feel so inclined to speak kindly to Nancy Pelosi and other establishment members of the Democratic Party. And that shows, and they have attacked her for it. So if there were more people like Nina Turner coming to join the squad, then I think that would maybe embolden, the current members to feel as though they have more political sway and they could use their numbers to leverage more political power down the line. It's just right now, I think they're being a little bit strategic and playing the long game because they know what could happen with a seniority-based body of government who will behind the scenes make it so they will not be able to amass any other power otherwise. So, I think it comes back to that seniority-based form of government where it's just the elderly population that's maintaining that status quo and will not bend to the will of the people. It's not just the Green New Deal either, or Medicare for all, but we don't stand a chance as constituents to have our public opinion, transformed into actual policy. And you can call it a generational divide. You can call it whatever you want. No major party is listening to the desires or wishes of their constituents. That's abundantly clear. And the reason why it seems as though Republicans are doing quite well is because the GOP makes something up that they will fight back against, such as CRT. So whenever there is no real threat that the Republicans have suggested, it seems as though they're doing more in comparison to the Democrats, who have these, make these grandstanding promises that they will make half measures, or they will take a progressive message and then they'll divide it, and then they'll promise a quarter of it and end up failing on those promises. So it looks as though the Democrats are much, much more incompetent and not necessarily loyal to their supporters in the way that Republicans seemingly are, because they're not necessarily, following through, or they don't need to follow through with their campaign promises because they're not real. You know what I mean? That's like, that's what it comes down to.
And I think the best place to, bring the conversation full circle is, what Sonara says, if Nina wins, we'll have maybe 10 good people in Congress. But what Chris Smalls has done by unionizing Amazon in Staten Island, that has set off a chain reaction that we've always maintained. You need to have an inside-outside strategy. But the great equalizer, the great unifier is labor, period.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a huge difference between labor and unions. A lot of people need to understand that. Not that unions are bad and we need them, but there is a huge difference between the interests of working people and the interests of bureaucrats. As I always like to point out, and Mike, you know this very well, in 2016, every time a union rank and file had the opportunity to vote on endorsement, they always voted for Bernie. Anytime it was always the board's decision, it always went to Hillary.
Yeah.
So it's clear as day where our great unifying issue of our time is. It is with labor, because Staten Island, I'm from New Jersey. I can tell you Staten Island is a very conservative part of New York. And whether you have, and Chris Smalls mentioned this, we've got Bernie supporters, moderate supporters, and Trump supporters, and no one gives a shit about that stuff. We care about the fact that we don't have a living wage, we don't have universal health care, and we're treated like shit every day. So this is how we bring people together. And the more this message gets amplified, the more that we're going to be able to build this mass movement. And I just got to say, anybody who shits on Bernie, screw you. That's all I can say. You saw how, and listen, I give credit to AOC for showing up the other day. She has listen, her level of trust within the movement has been completely shot as far as I'm concerned. But the way that Chris Smalls wrapped his arms around Bernie, you can just tell that he knows, you can tell, because Chris is the real deal.
Yeah, he is.
You know that Bernie was doing everything in his power behind the scenes to try to help him. And now there is a legitimate movement. It seems like every time a Starbucks tries to unionize, they're succeeding. So as far as I can tell, this is how we take our country back. Electoral politics matters. I will not dismiss that. And I think you should always support the non-corporate candidate.
Yep.
But labor is how we're going to get this shit done.
Yeah.
And it's not going to come from a politician. That's one thing that I think this also proves. It's got to be bottom up, right? The way that Chris Smalls organized the Amazon union, that is specifically the blueprint as to how it's done. And certainly politicians can help facilitate that change. But at the end of the day, we see how fickle the voting base is in the United States. Like, they absolutely support progressive policies. And this is something that I've boasted about for years. Like, we almost always have a majority of support on Medicare for all and all these policies. But the problem is that Republicans have found a way to not just distract, but raise the salience of dumb issues. So even if somebody thinks that, yeah, maybe every American should have, a good paying job in healthcare. I really prefer to not have my kids be indoctrinated with CRT, and that's more important to me. So they somehow find a way to raise the salience. And, what Amy was speaking to was the Democratic Party fighting against Nina Turner. Just the fact that like they're trying so hard to defeat her is evidence to me that she's someone you want to have in Congress. But it's also further proof that the Democratic Party, they actually do know how to fight. They do know how to elevate the salience of issues and the way that Republicans do. We saw it in 2020 when they talked about electability. They know how to be disciplined in the way that the Republicans are. They're choosing not to be against Republicans because, again, their goal is to maintain the status quo. And it's not necessarily even keeping things as they are now. Because if that were the case, they could easily fight against a lot of the things that the Republicans are doing to take us back. I mean, we're talking about in 2022, women going back to back alley illegal abortions with coat hangers. I mean, it's insane, right? So if they were just keeping us where we are, then that would be okay. But just Republicans, they change the status quo, make it more ruthless, more Orwellian, more authoritarian. And then once we're at that point, Democrats, they make sure that they serve at that point. It's the ratchet effect, right? Is that what it is? Where it's like, we get shifted to the right as a country, and then we don't go back to the left once Democrats take control. It's just, it feels like an unwinnable situation. But I think that the real thing that I do get hopium from is the labor movement, because when politicians come through and they say, hey, we need policies X, Y, and Z, and Americans respond, that's great, but they can be distracted. So you need somebody in their face organizing with them and holding their hand and guiding them to it. Because if you don't do that, then I'm sorry, Americans are very uninformed, and a lot of us are very stupid. I mean, that's just the way that it is. Like, we are one of the dumbest countries in the world. So you have to acknowledge that reality and try to work with it. Just to give everyone just further example of this, do you want to know who one of the most popular senators in America is?
I'm scared.
Joe Manchin.
Joe Manchin.
Oh.
It's Joe Manchin. His popularity shot up by 17 percentage points after telling his constituents to eat a dick. Like, they said, if you polled West Virginians about Build Back Better, provision by provision, it all has majority support. And Joe Manchin was like, basically, fuck you all. You're not getting it. I'm going to block it personally. And he got more popular. So Americans, they have this like masochistic kink or something. Like, they like when politicians spit in their faces. But what's happening is, even if those people in West Virginia support these policies overall, they can get duped by other non-issues, woke issues and whatnot. With the issue of West Virginia, it's a little bit more cut and dry, where Joe Manchin lost support with Democrats, but gained a lot of support with Republicans. So, that kind of explains that. But I mean, for the most part, Americans can easily get duped. And so I don't know if there's any other way to overcome that than to actually organize with them in the way that Chris Smalls did it. Because, if you have some dickhead on the media trying to lie to them or raise the salience of the M&M's candy not being sexy, then you can have somebody in their face bring them back to reality and say, actually, no, this is why we need to organize. Look at what they're like. There's a real world impact. Like with Starbucks, for example, like they were cutting the hours of employees who started to unionize, closing down the store. So they see that. But with politicians, it's a lot more abstract when they have a message. So that's why I think that this really is the correct way to go. The labor organizing, which is different than unions, which is why I'm so glad that Peter pointed that out.
Yeah. Nathan, that's great to hear. We have a couple of local Starbucks here that are in the process of unionizing. And this is an important time. I'm just going to point this out. If you live near a Starbucks that is in the process, show up for them. Show up for them. We actually have a group down here. Is it like the college? It's the college DSA group, I think it is.
Yeah,
the FIU. And they organize that every week. They have people come down to the Starbucks, go in, buy stuff, and then you leave a message. First of all, you put in your name as Union Strong. So every time they call you to get your coffee, they're saying Union Strong. And then you leave these little notes on their board saying, we support labor, we support unions. And just the community needs to show up, because it can't just be done by the people that are working there, because they are the people that are the vulnerable people that can lose their hours and can lose their jobs. But when employers know that the community is watching them, that it really adds this extra support, and it really helps the people that work there to feel that sense of like community. And I think it's really important. So if you know of a Starbucks that's having that, show up for them. and be there and make it clear to that business that you support union.
And if you want to get conservative America really behind this, and not in terms of the Republicans and the Democrats, we know who's controlled by corporate power, but in terms of the people who typically vote Republican, you got to go after Walmart. That's where it's at, because the Waltons completely destroyed the heartland and the South in this country. Destroyed it. Destroyed small businesses.
Long before Amazon.
Yeah, destroyed communities. I mean, in my opinion, you can have some justification behind Jeff Bezos because he simply monopolized an industry that is needed. He obviously made an effort to mitigate some of it because he does do some business with small businesses. But what the Waltons have done to this country in terms of mom and pop shops all throughout the areas of this country that are not on the coastlines, they've destroyed it. And they are as massive supporters of neoliberal politics as anybody. In fact, there are a lot of people who think it's the Waltons that got Bill Clinton into the White House in the first place. So as far as I can tell, the labor push must continue, but you've got to go after Walmart. To me, that's going to be an even harder fight, because in many ways, Walmart represents communities as a whole financially all throughout the country. Amy, Cav, thoughts?
It's interesting to see the relationship between the Walmarts and suburban sprawl that started to, further expand in the 1990s during the time when Clinton was in office. And if you really think that it's going to be the Walmarts, the taking down of Walmart that's going to get some conservatives on board, I'm all ears. I'm listening to you. I only know how to really vehemently go hard on Walmart from like an urban sprawl, suburban sprawl perspective. But all right.
Anytime you drive across the country, times that I've driven on Interstate 10, which is basically where you are, across to where Atlanta is, or if you're driving on Interstate 80 or any of the major interstates like I-5, when you're driving through small town America, you're pretty much always going to find a Walmart. They're always there. And
there's a map. You can see them, how many they grew over the years. It's insane. You can look up a map of the total number of Walmarts that have been established over the entirety of their existence. And it's ridiculous how many there are. Sometimes there's a Walmart that's within a 2.5 mile radius, which is how they were able to capitalize on the siloing of suburban neighborhoods to create far more Walmarts than were actually needed. And that also really hurt local business. That's how they really got down at that micro level, and they were able to kill so many smaller businesses because of the total number of Walmarts per capita in some areas. And then, of course, they targeted rural areas as well. That absolutely killed business in rural areas. Dollar General is getting, yeah.
And this is also why I get really upset when people go after the majority of Trump supporters. We went to a Trump rally here in South Florida.
We did.
The crazies, they make up about 5 to 10% of the group. But the overwhelming majority of people that go there are normal working class people.
I don't know that I call them normal, but I will say that it was a very broad spectrum.
Yes.
And by the way, down here, a lot of Orthodox Jews
and a lot of Latinos.
Yeah.
And then the point I wanted to make was, Trump had a great message of America first.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they turned it around and made it into white nationalism. But the truth of the matter is, this country is suffering. They can't get a job, and the jobs that they have don't pay because they're able to outsource everything like Walmart does. They do business in China. They pay a slave wage. And so when you are desperate, you will go for the carnival barker who will say the right thing, but doesn't actually give a shit about helping you. He'll say the right stuff. Trump had the right message, but he's a false prophet. Bernie was the one who had the right message and needed to be the one who made it to the finish line. And so where we stand right now is there are a lot of good people that are out there that are just so desperate for help that they'll turn to somebody like Trump, because that is what companies like Walmart and Amazon and Dollar General, they have done to completely destroy this country.
I have a question for Cav. Like, what does it look like this might be a totally stupid American question, but regarding that complete monopolization that we have here with like Walmart, and now we're seeing it with the dollar stores, what's it like in the UK as far as small businesses versus mega stores?
Yeah, so we do have Walmart in the UK. It's called Asda. But Asda is actually one of the smaller shopping outlets. So we have Tesco, Asda, and Sainsbury are like the big three, and there's a couple more. And you'll find one of these in like every part of the UK. Like I drove around rural Scotland for my holiday in the summer, and you'll still find a Lidl, you'll still find a Tesco, no matter where you go. Like it's absolutely everywhere. The thing in the UK at the moment, UK is a lot more like urban in terms of like we have so many towns and cities, but the death of like the UK high street is something that has become massive. So basically, you guys probably know this, gambling shops and stuff, they pop up in the poorest areas. So you'll go to a poor area, gambling shops, chicken shops, McDonald's, Burger King, most independent shops are gone. So I actually took a trip to Gibraltar when I was in Spain. Gibraltar is a British colony basically in Spain. And it hasn't actually had this like globalization. So everything there is independent, and it's so jarring being in a part of the UK where there aren't many chains apart from maybe like a Domino's pizza. So it's something that's like, it's not happening to the scale of America, because what we generally have with most like companies that do services like supermarkets or, you know, gas and oil, there's like it's kind of like how you guys have the big, like the broadband companies, but the difference is they all like agree to divide up the country among themselves so they can have the monopoly. Where in the UK you have these companies who kind of like, I think they meet with the government to like sort certain things out. So it's not as like, I guess what you're saying, because I think I've heard Amy talk about this. In America, I can't believe you can't walk most places, and in some places there's no access to fresh food. Like you literally have to eat like like Taco Bell, McDonald's, and it's absolutely wild to me. Like I cannot imagine living in a place where that is my option. And I think it's something about like how the US, and Amy probably elaborate a bit on this, like how the US is built as a country, where instead of like the UK is like hubs everywhere, like town, massive city, town, and even like rural communities do have this aspect. But in the US, it feels like just like Amy was saying, like urban sprawl, suburbs, nothing there, and you cannot get out without a car. So that, I think that allows things like Walmart to become the center of a place. It's like, well, Walmart, I know Costco's not as bad, but like Walmart, it's just like, that's where you get everything. And, you know, with the communities all building up in these, I guess, massive, like just sprawl of suburbs, then there isn't like a high street like the UK. There isn't somewhere to go and get all these different shops. So that's like the difference in the UK. It's definitely a problem. And we do have basically, I guess the main problem is everything you'd normally get in a high street has been taken over by a chain company. And that's the difference. It's like, everything is still there, but everyone who owns a private business is going out of business, and it's just a big corporation with little shops everywhere. So if that's, you know, I'm drinking this right now, it's a Costa coffee that replaces basically every small coffee shop, like Starbucks. We have like two of them, and that's the problem in the UK compared to the US, where it feels like, I guess, I don't know, like corporate colonization maybe is like a good word. Just like gentrification as well, for sure.
Yeah, we definitely have that problem. We have a lot of food deserts here, and there's neighborhoods in our district where there's nothing near them but junk food. Nothing. Like you couldn't find fresh produce unless you walk for miles. And that's a huge problem. Like I don't even think I would mind chains if they were healthy food in different neighborhoods. Then I don't think I would care if they were owned by the same thing. Like that wouldn't bother me as much. If, you know, you put a sort of like a mini fresh market type of thing in every neighborhood, and it was all owned by I don't think that it would bother me that it was one company. But right now we've got places where people can't get healthy food at all. And I think we have a lot of food deserts. I mean, you know about this, Amy.
Yeah, it's an assessment that is made by executives in a room making an assessment of the risks and the rewards, and they decide that there's not enough concentrated wealth in the area to ensure that their company is going to be profitable. And so if the amounts of wealth based on the household income in a given area does not indicate that the grocery store chain will do well. They just won't. They won't enter that area. Dollar stores will. Dollar stores. The Intercept broke down a really good analysis of this and how there is one lender that has essentially never turned down a dollar store from getting a loan for commercial space. So they have assumed so much risk by purchasing commercial space in areas that tend to resemble these food deserts. But because of how much profits they make elsewhere, it does help to leverage out those potential losses. But we don't necessarily know how they have leveraged all of that debt, because that debt is bundled and sold in the form of mortgage-backed securities, the same way that subprime mortgages were, that ended up crashing the economy in 2008. And so nobody really knows, but we know that the relationship that Dollar Store has with their gigantic lender, it might be Bank of America, it might be Wells Fargo, could be Chase, but basically it's one lender who has never turned them down, and they get to package their debt and then they sell it off. That's then tranched and sold again on the secondary market in the same way that our current residential debt is still sold on Wall Street, or that is, gambled on by Wall Street hedge fund managers. So that being said, especially with the commercial spaces that are available and the economic disruptions that caused a lot of people to decide not to renew their lease, we could be experiencing not just a residential market bubble, but a commercial one as well, which could lead to many difficulties down the pike that I don't think that we're ready to really discuss. But
Yeah,
it's a risk.
I actually think that companies that want to go into vulnerable areas should be subsidized to do so, because obviously they are not going to see the same profits that they would see in other areas. But in order to keep those businesses into those neighborhoods, we need to offer them something to do so. So there's got to be a way to subsidize those businesses and offer them something that makes it worth their while, or at least makes it so that it's not a loss for them to operate in neighborhoods that wouldn't otherwise be profitable.
Yeah, the Community Investment Act that was introduced by Jimmy Carter was supposed to give really low interest loans to communities to help with building sustainable businesses for local business owners. And that just got co-opted by other, bigger company owners that took advantage of those FHA-backed or, low interest loans, which is what you tend to see right now. Think about how many people were able to secure small business loans whenever they were issued during COVID-19. Big business do not mind to overstep the government sweetheart deals that are literally crafted to help smaller businesses or communities in need of some additional investment. It does not matter to them. It's all on the table.
Amy, we were speaking about it last week. Mr. Beast got $1 million COVID loan, and he spends $600K on one YouTube video blowing off fireworks. So that sounds out right there.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
We gotta watch yourself, Cav. Treacherous waters, dangerous territory.
Oh man, is there anything we can talk about that isn't depressing this evening? Well, listen, the labor movement.
Steve Donziger's
yes, Stephen Donziger is
right,
and that's
our good
huge
news.
deal. But it's also a reminder of what happens if you cross corporate power, especially when it comes to big oil. And this is something we all have to. Again, I just think our mission is really to. We understand that the wedge issues are going to be there, but the core issues that we really that are affecting our daily lives, healthcare, the environment, living wage, obviously labor, ending the wars, there are core issues that overwhelmingly, as Mike pointed out earlier, that people agree on. Like, we're not divided. We're not as divided as people think.
No.
And if we get to issues that you have no control over, They want us to focus on issues like LGBTQ rights.
Well, and wait, this is
abortion.
important. By the way,
Yeah.
I wanted to share. So I did a Discord AMA the other day, and I had never done that before. And I don't know, what channel was that? Like, I don't know the different channels. He just set it up and I went and did it. The amount of questions I get regarding what I think about people's genitalia. Like, I, for the life of me, cannot wrap my mind around how this is important to people. And I said, not. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying here, but where do you think that trans people? What bathrooms have they been using since the beginning of time? Where have they been? Have they been like? Why is this an issue for you now? And I just can't believe the amount of people that's what they're concerned with. They're so concerned with people's genitalia.
Why is the cat convinced that it's going to get the red dot that's moving on the wall?
I don't understand it. Why are they so concerned with this?
It's just typical republicanism, isn't it? It's like I was thinking about this when Mike was talking, because I read actually a really interesting post today. Richard Nixon tried to do universal healthcare before Watergate, and I was thinking, like, what changed so much? And I don't know if you've watched that Mad Men episode, the election episode, and it's like Don Draper supports Nixon because he comes from like a poor background.
Yeah.
And you think about like what has changed from the 60s, where someone could vote Nixon and then they could vote Lyndon Johnson, and it's like this culture war stuff that's taken over, thanks to, like Mike, you pointed out, with Reagan and embracing like far right evangelical beliefs, like the Protestant work ethic is very compatible with capitalism as well. And it's like now it's like, what has it been since even the 60s? He had it a bit, but at least Nixon had some policies where it's like, well, civil rights, scary, or Black Panthers, very scary, war on drugs, scary, and then it's like abortion, Second Amendment, like that's been the Republicans' main things for ages, and now it's bathrooms, and now it's critical race theory, and these things that aren't really like quantifiable to people. But when you brainwash people with this stuff, especially if they're already like very, very religious as well for the LGBT stuff, I think it's very easy to manipulate them. But that's all they care about, because you always wonder, and it's not to say I don't think people are fundamentally stupid. I think people are brainwashed and America's even worse, because we're all brainwashed in Western countries to think, but I think American exceptionism, I think, is a thing that's even on the left as well. And I think it's the way sometimes American leftists deal with European leftists. It comes from a place of, well, the American world order is fundamentally still the best alternative to whatever else there is. And I think for a lot of Americans, it's very, very hard. And it's a British thing as well. I think British are horrible for this as well. We think the empire is good and everything. But it's like, I think it's very easy to brainwash Americans into thinking these issues are most important. It's even like, the Iraq war, things like that. It's like the critical thinking goes off because the mass media, the schools, the radio, it all like basically comes down to one thing, and it like brainwashes you. So now people will actually care about transgender people suddenly. Like, they ever given a shit about transgender people like 10 years ago? No one was talking about transgender people. They're all talking about abortion before. Now this has all come together. And I do think, I agree with you that I do think a lot of people fundamentally have the same interests. I also do think there is a large section of the Republican voting base, and evangelicals vote a lot, who will never accept these things, and they'll never turn on the Republicans as long as they pounded them in like a religious conservative way. So I think that's one problem. And who embraced them the most? Reagan, but also Donald Trump. And I think DeSantis and QAnon, all this stuff, I think it's very compatible with this evangelical religion as well. So I think that's one thing. It's like that it's hard to combat outside, because I do agree that you could get most people to come together, but then you have this really powerful lobby group in the evangelical different churches and stuff, and they have the fingers on the purse strings of the Republican Party in many ways. And why do Republicans support Israel so much? It's not because they're all Zionist, it's because they're all Christian fundamentalists who think Israel will trigger Armageddon. And that's the sort of crazy you're dealing with, and that's not a minority in the Republican donors. These are very powerful people. So I think it's hard sometimes, general in America, when you have like that as like a legit option for people. Like, do you want to support a party who wants to bring about Armageddon in Israel or something? And I definitely agree, because remember, a lot of people forget, but Trump was very close to succumbing to COVID when he was at, he was saved by the ivermectin. Yeah, I was. Hold on. Oh, God. You totally were talking about me. You're trashing me all night. I don't appreciate it. Believe me when I tell you, we're totally coming back, and I totally was not close to death. I was totally fine.
I had the finest doctors,
You're
the most
disgusting.
incredible thing. No, you're terrible. And believe me when I tell you, we are going to make America great again.
Again.
So when that happens, and listen, I heard this guy Peter on this podcast says that I stole his idea from him. He said, "Make America great again."
That was his idea. We said it first.
Well, I totally.
We said it first here.
Yeah, but I made it great again. That's the point. That's why it's so great when I do it. Amy, what's your number? I'd like to call you sometime. Kavernacle, I don't like your accent. It's really, really terrible. And let me tell you something. I like the gays. They're great people, tremendous people. I have no problem with them. As long as
He likes the gays.
no, as long as they vote for me, it's really great. That's all that matters. As long as you vote for me. And if you don't vote for me, I'm not going to be nice to you. In fact, I'm going to be terrible to you. So stay on my good side.
God.
You're all terrible but wonderful people.
Where did you get the COVID face?
So
Like
good.
that has to be like the Trump COVID face, right? Like he looks he looks even more grotesque there, which is
Well,
hard
I,
to
love
I tell the story all the time because I actually met him. And what I try to explain to people is if you want to know why he puts that shit on his face is because
He's
he
pasty
is
white.
the most pasty white guy. Like I remember I was like, God damn, you're white. And he has like the most like unmuscular,
You're white.
like he's like the most unmuscular arms. He's tall, he's about 6'4". But he's definitely like the most, like you say, lechy. Lechy's the
He's
word.
grotesque.
Like you use that word.
Oh.
Yeah, at least he was nice to me. I mean,
Whatever.
It's better than nothing. But yeah, unfortunately, that's people are envious of celebrity and the rich, and when you put that together with a complete showman, because that's what he is.
He's a snake oil salesman.
Yeah, he's a snake oil salesman, and people eat it up, and that's why more than anything else, the disdain for Trump is legitimate because he does say the right thing in many instances, but he doesn't actually give a shit.
No.
He is not here to help you. And the sooner you recognize that the senator from Vermont is the man who's actually here to help you and believe you, that's the bottom line. Guys, we seriously have to do this again. Like, this is like way too fun of a battle. There's way too much camaraderie. You guys are totally incredible and awesome. And the issues that we talk about are issues that we need to be talking about all the time. And one person...
Please, I could have Cav on just to hear him talk to me about what happened in the countryside of Scotland that he went on. That's where I want to go.
I did drive my car into a ditch. It's not very suitable.
Oh
for cars.
no.
But thankfully, they're very nice people who stopped. And then some guy who was cutting wood nearby jumped in the car like a crazy man, and he just like accelerated so hard it was like burning rubber, and he got it out. So we were fine. It was yeah, if you ever get the chance, it's like the nicest part of the UK. Scottish people are lovely as well.
Yes, I want to go there.
Yeah.
Note to self: don't drive with Cav. Okay.
and the one thing
End
that
up in a ditch.
and the last thing I want to point out, since you guys are streamers, and this is very important, I know Vosh gets a lot of crap, but my God, if there is a guy who really understands that there are so many of the guys that follow these streams are really like hardcore conservative. And when Vosh interjects this sort of like socialist mindset, he probably pulls a lot of those guys, back from the cliff. And it's very important to realize how important getting this word out to that environment is so important because, we say all the time, a lot of the things that have happened, remember Columbine, which is kind of touched off this whole, the school shootings and all the things that have come over the last 20 plus years, it started in the age of the internet. So many of these things really happened when people could get into chats and have their beliefs reinforced and talk about, just how, bad the world is and how we have to do something about it. Well, use it for good. And understanding that the messages that you guys are putting out there is good. That's what we try to do. When we talk about turning politics into service, it is what you guys do. And we're very grateful that you came on tonight. Jen, any final thoughts?
No, Mike, were you going to say something before what we were talking about? I mean, it looked like you were going to say something before.
No, I just wanted to ask Peter about the Trump mask. If you like darken the eyes, because the bags under his eyes are like so dark looking, but
yeah,
I love it.
It's like COVID. It's like the COVID brown face.
No, I think it's because they're cut out a little so that you could actually see through them.
Oh, that's smart. Okay. Well, it's cut perfectly like around the bag on his eyes. So it's like, oh my God, he looks like death. You know, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I did like a 15-minute long video that I put up on my YouTube channel just talking about his appearance because it's jarring seeing his face again. After not really looking at him or thinking about him a lot for quite some time, he's so wet. It's not just that he's orange. He's genuinely a wet person. Like his face is so wet, and it's not just sweat. Like I feel like he looks like a sponge, even like in the texture. So I'm very obsessed
Well, you're about
with.
to see more of him too, because he's going to be back on Twitter.
I know he
He's
will.
gonna be back.
He says that he's not. He says that he's building Truth Social because that's where we tell the truth.
I'm excited to join Truth Social personally, but I haven't signed up yet. But I will be for sure.
There's a
Wait,
big
what is
waiting
it?
list.
Truth Social.
That's Truth Social. It's what's waiting me. See, I'm all about that instant gratification. So if I have to wait, then I'm not gonna want to do it. But once there's no wait list, then maybe I could just sign up and go
What
on
is
it.
it?
Then
Wait, hold on. What is it?
so it's basically Twitter. Like they just copy and pasted Twitter, but it's by and for Donald Trump. It's like his alternative to Twitter because he was banned, and they call it like retruths instead of retweets. The verification check mark looks the same, but the difference is you can't criticize Donald Trump. So it's apparently pro free speech, but there's been like other conservatives who have said, oh, well, I was criticizing Donald Trump for being too weak and basically not being Nazi enough. And I got banned. So I'm like, oh, wow, so you can't criticize Donald Trump, but it's pro free speech. It looks just like Twitter, albeit shittier. I want to sign up. Like it sounds amazing. Like they sold me on it.
You would get banned so fast. There wouldn't you would be there and gone before you know it.
That explains a lot. So Devin,
You know, I would not necessarily come in as myself. I would have to create some sort of it is run by Devin, and that does say a lot. Yeah. No, I would probably have to be like a fake patriot or something like that. I'd make it like this whole social experiment. I like to troll sometimes. You know,
Make a video.
He's so good.
Yeah.
Use the Dixie flag.
Yeah.
When you use the Dixie flag as your little icon, it gets you places in those circles.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, they like that Confederate flag.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to find some way to covertly infiltrate this platform, but I feel like I don't want to do it until there's no wait list. But at the same time, I mean, it's gonna crash and burn in like a week. So I need to.
Totally long wait list. You totally want to be here.
Yeah. Everybody's waiting. Thousands have signed up.
Tremendous, bigly, incredibly.
So great.
Cav, lead us off. What are you working on? How can people find you? How can they get involved?
Oh, me. Sorry,
Yeah,
I was
you.
tuning out there.
You.
Yeah, I'm not really working on anything at the moment. I mean, I upload 3 times a week, so that's about it. I'm probably going to stream right after this, just because I might as well since I'm up. But yeah, just Kavernacle, mainly on YouTube. Type it in on anything, and I'll come up. Instagram, Twitter, and yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Had a lot of fun. I need to collab more. Me and Amy collabed last week. So if you got to watch one video, it's called Mr. Beast something, Mr. Beast charity, and the thumbnail is Brad Pitt and Mr. Beast, and me and Amy just spoke about like millionaire charity and why it's so shitty. So yeah, go check that out if you're gonna
industrial
watch.
complex and why
Yeah.
it's horrible to the detriment of society.
That's a whole other. We could do a whole.
We could listen. You know what? We could have another. Panel podcast at some point to talk about the nonprofit industrial complex and the consultant class.
Yeah, that's his thing.
Yeah.
Dirty little secret. You know, we talk about CNN Plus failing. Does anybody want to find out just how much in consultant fees McKinsey, Mayor Pete's organization, ended up making as a result of that colossal failure? I'll say probably at least 10 to 20%. They got at least 30 to 60 million out of it. So, you know,
Let them keep
That's-
going. Let McKinsey and these other consultant groups like run these fucking like mainstream media shit lib hubs into the ground. That's what I'm saying. And then we'll work on like taking them down.
See, I was
I have
actually
no
really.
objections.
I'm a huge fan of CNN Plus. I subscribed the day after it launched, and the news that it was going under was so sad to me because like there's a ton of
Bullshit, I
good
watched
shows.
the video. I watched your
There's-
video.
There's Parental Guidance with Anderson Cooper. There's Jake Tapper's book club. There's The Source
sounds
with
so
Casey
bad.
Hunt. I mean, if you don't want to watch this, I just
important person of all. It's You gotta talk about me, damn it!
I cannot believe you watched that. Mike, how would you not find that just completely insufferable? How can you watch that?
I'm just
He
kidding.
didn't watch it.
No,
He's
yeah,
bullshitting.
I tried to log in, or not log in. I tried to like see what the catalog was so I can make my video on it, but they have it like behind a paywall. But my thought was, how amazing would this be? Like, I know that the left needs to organize and do a lot, come together, but how much more funny would it be if we all just came together and we had this huge petition that said Save CNN Plus with millions and millions of signatures, and then we all sign up en masse. They get like 100,000 new signups, and then as soon as they announce we're reversing the decision, we all cancel at the same time. Like, I just feel like that would bring so much more joy to my heart that it might be better than like an actual legit political victory. That's where I'm at mentally. So
You're you know what? Unfortunately, the end of humanity will be a meme. That's all I can say. That's where we're heading.
we'll go down memeing and laughing about it until the fire consumes us all.
Well,
Are we living?
well, we're drowning first because
Well,
everything
yeah.
south of Lake Okeechobee is getting washed out to the sea.
Well,
so
I was going to say, you know, it's
I have diving certification,
Well,
so I'm going to be.
There you go.
and don't look up. I mean, it's kind of becoming like a warning. Like it wasn't a
Mhm.
movie; it was actually like a foretelling of what's coming if we don't stop screwing around. Amy,
Yeah.
please, the floor is yours.
Oh, I have a couple projects in the works right now, getting a podcast together. I'm working on a motion feature presentation about climate change that will hopefully be ready before like the first major catastrophe hits. That's like the beginning of the end. But that's one of my major projects right now. I have a couple other collaborations and a podcast. It's called The Municipal. It's with me and my friend Juan, who is currently a council member for Aurora's district in Colorado. And we talk about the importance of getting more people involved with understanding local level issues that are affecting everyone across the country, but unique to an individual's or community's scale of the issue itself. So trying to create a means from which people can start to better understand what is happening and if they feel affected by it or they feel so inclined to do something about it, providing the channels as well to get them to take that step from learning about what is going on and admiring the issue that we are talking about and turning that inner frustration or antagonism into real action by getting out there, organizing, forming coalitions, and becoming part of that change that does stem from learning a little bit more about an issue that tends to have some sort of effect on you or makes you want to be a part of the solution for.
Where is that podcast? Is that
We haven't actually set it up yet. Like it's still very, very new. Like we've already recorded one episode, but it'll most likely be on YouTube under the Municipal.
Okay. Well, when you launch, you'll have to come back and you can promote and all of that. And everyone knows who Mike is, but go ahead.
Oh, I'm not doing anything different. I'm trying to actually reduce the amount of like social media that I do, but I mean, you could always find me at the Humanist Report. I do at least 2 videos a day. I try to do 3, but for mental health purposes, I am doing the bare minimum for like a month or 2 just to stay sane. But yeah, Humanist Report.
Yeah, I
Can I
have to
do one
tell
more
you
plug too?
What was that?
Can I do one more plug?
Yeah,
I forgot about one. So on Wednesdays, another friend of mine, Matt from Unelectable Airwaves, we have a forum that is open to anyone who has a question about the eviction process or any housing inquiries in general, because so many people right now are just literally waiting in line to be evicted because of the backlog in most local courts. We're trying to offer peer-reviewed solutions or provide them with the resources that are necessary if there is no legal aid available, which is in short supply anyway. And if you are kind of forced to represent yourself in a court, we will help prepare you as much as possible.
How can they find that? Where is
It's
that?
on my Twitch channel on Wednesdays at 7 p.m.
Okay. So guys, check that out and let's spread that because it's basically like peer legal aid. Which, yeah, well, that's needed.
Wow.
I mean, we have to help ourselves. That's really smart.
That's great.
It's not defense for legal purposes. I want to say like we can't assume the role of defense counsel, but we are offering peer-to-peer services and offering resources by answering any questions.
That's awesome. Oh, Mike, I just wanted to tell you one thing. When I was doing the graphic for this, I came across a picture and it was you. But you were, but it was before you had a beard and I could not tell that
I saw that recently as well.
It was so, and now I know why you have the beard, because you look like a baby if you don't have the beard. You, like, I would think you'd get carded like regularly if you didn't have the facial hair. If you guys have not seen the picture of facial hairless Mike,
I've seen it. I've been watching Mike since he got started.
Okay, well,
yeah, it's in his old videos as well.
And I'm like, who is that kid? Who is that kid with the sign? And I'm like, oh my God, that's you.
And I still say you've got the best background. That's
well, thank you.
You got a good one, but you've got.
I like.
Is that how many? What's the YouTube plaque for? It's
his
100K.
Nice.
Yeah. We can't even get to 10.
Mike, I want the 100K. I'm absolutely obsessed with getting it this year. I want that plaque
we're gonna help
so
you do
fucking
that.
bad.
I think we're going
to help you do that. I'm going to live vicariously through your 100K because we'll be drowned.
Once we get to 10K, I think that puts us at then we're able to start.
I don't think so. I'm at my age. I'll be too old by the time that.
Well, listen, if we really start. No, if we start working on this TikTok thing, if it works out.
I'm old, Mike. I really am.
Yeah. No, she'll be 50.
I'm maybe 51.
I'll be 39.
Well, look.
A couple of weeks.
I am approaching midlife crisis. I'm going to be 35 this year.
Oh,
and let me just say, I've been on YouTube long enough to know that it's harder now to get going. But if you just keep plugging away, you'll get lucky and some random video that you put out will blow up and get like 100,000 views. And that's your start. That's how it started for me. Mine was a Bernie Sanders video, unsurprisingly.
Mine was a Bernie Sanders video.
Bernie Bernie's king.
Now this has to happen.
You know what? Did a really good job.
Oh my God.
Allowing people to build their platforms off of my ideas, which was really great. And if you guys saw, it was very important. We went to Staten Island this weekend to help Christian Smalls unionize the second Amazon warehouse, which is very important. And then after that, I went down to Richmond, Virginia, and I helped the Starbucks workers with their union rally as well. And they put out nice T-shirts. They did a really good job. I was really impressed. And
Bernie, why are you wall-eyed? I have to.
I know. It's not the best. It's not the best mask.
It's the best we could do.
It's the best we could do.
I'm not being straight right now, but I am very appreciative of Amy and the work that you do for housing in California. It's very terrible. And of course, the Kavernacle, we all wish we had universal health care, living wage, and much better education system here in the United States. Unfortunately, it's not like the UK. And Mike, we really appreciate all the hard work you've done to spread the message about democratic socialism and everything that we're trying to do to save this country right now. So if you keep doing
Bernie.
all of you guys are wonderful, really appreciate it, and hope to see you soon.
You know, I will say that when he does the characters, that's the only one that doesn't make me want to go like this. When he does Trump and Bill, I'm like, and then if he does Biden, I have to like hold my hair out of the way just because I don't need him to be sniffing it. I know that Biden would be all in that, like white on rice, man. He'd be all in that hair.
It speaks to how good the impression is. Like when you actually believe it like that and you get creepy vibes from the creepy character, it speaks to how well he's doing. You're crushing it, Peter.
That's why when he's Bernie, I'm kind of like, okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
But Bill will come out and then he wants to get all touchy. And it's gross.
You can't blame me for doing that. But you guys are great, and obviously we should, like I said, we should do this. Yeah, we frankly should do more panels.
We're working on it. Thank you guys so much.
Just so you guys know, and if you guys want to help spread the word on Wednesday, because we do our live streams Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, we are having a very important panel. This is becoming a thing now.
We have a healthcare panel, coast to coast.
We are going to have Representative Ash Kalra of California, who put forward CalCare. We are going to have State Senator Gustavo Rivera, who put forward the New York Health Act in New York. And we are also having Wendell Potter, who is the former Cigna executive turned author and whistleblower, who basically blew up the private insurance industry to just let everybody know what a crock of shit.
I'm calling it healthcare coast to coast.
Yeah.
Love it.
Or lack thereof.
Well, yeah.
That works too, yeah.
And if there's one thing that I do think that's going to be the first domino to fall, it is going to be healthcare, because even the other day, speaking with my father, who deals with higher net worth people in his line of work. And when he says that they are beside themselves at the healthcare bills that they get, it's like, yeah, is it starting to kick in now that it's absolutely insane that 3 of the shooting victims that we know of that happened at the subway in Brooklyn have had to put up GoFundMe accounts to pay for their medical bills? Like, at some point, you have to realize that the system is not just beyond a joke, it is barbaric. And anyone who defends it at this point, you're just a piece of shit.
I won't debate it anymore. I'd sooner debate a flat earther.
Yeah, eliminate the for-profit middlemen in between us and our doctors. That's it.
Can I just say one thing as well? Is something I realized. It's not even just the for-profit healthcare, because I went private for an MRI scan. I said this before, and my bill was £300, right? And I've seen MRI bills for $8,000 on American healthcare bills, and it's obviously clearly you're not being charged for the service. You're being charged, like you're saying, middlemen, insurance companies who are absolutely like just scamming everyone because they're not needed. And then what's that like? You know, inflating the price by that much is just absolutely insane. That's what's like bankrupting. Obviously,
one of the things in Florida that is really bad is the medical supply sales business. It is a part of the for-profit system. And I once had a neighbor when I lived in Delray Beach that was in that business, and he was doing extremely well, including driving his C63 Mercedes and having his beautiful lakefront townhouse. It's look.
Gotta make a living, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the defense.
Gotta make a living.
I gotta make a living, man. You know, it's at some point the bubble's gonna burst, and hopefully that'll be the
Missouri
first.
just banned trans people from sports. That's nice.
You're doing a great job there, Missouri. Let me tell you.
That's just great. Well, we have a 50 now, so
as far as I know, what they were debating last week was banning transition for people up to 25. I don't know if that was a provision or something that they were trying to consider. So it's the sports ban, comparatively speaking, is now like, oh, okay, well, yeah, of course they're doing that. But can they exist? Can trans people just exist? Yeah, it's very, very adding to my doomerism quite a bit.
I think they were taking advantage of the fact that they were young and they were considered minors, so that they didn't or should not have the right to make bodily autonomy, like decisions made on their own bodily autonomy. And that was how they were able to, pass a lot lot of that legislation.
Yeah,
but
we're going to do a show about this. I'm going to have Mallory come on and talk about it. I have a very, very good friend
who lives close by,
who lives nearby, but I've learned so much from her because she actually transitioned young, and she's taught me so much about what the benefit of that is and why that matters. And she's also a really good voice about the sports issue because she's also an athlete.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Really good. Yeah. And so she's been like, that's been my info. Not that one person speaks for like an entire monolith, but just
no. But even if there's validity, and I do think to an extent, obviously there is regarding the Leah Thomas story. But if that's all you're going to focus on, if you're going to focus on one outlier,
exactly,
and just completely discredit everything else, it's like you're proving that it's just hack politicking. You don't actually believe in the cause. You're not actually concerned about the mental anguish and pain that people go through. Gender dysphoria and all these things. It's like, God damn it.
Stop kicking down, people.
It's genocide. I think we should call it what it is. And I know it freaks people out to use that, that harsh language, but it's genocide. That's what it is.
Or genocide, yeah. Or assisted suicide. You can call it whatever you want because it's a combination of all those things.
You know what? It's just mean. Like, I get the sports thing. I do. There needs to be certain rules about how long you've been on hormones, how long you've been. You do like, and there are ways to do that.
But they always want to attack the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
They don't care about the actual.
Well, even like when it comes to sports thing, like these bans, they specifically apply to trans girls at like the middle school and high school level. So, I mean, they don't care about fairness in sport. I mean, there's no fair sport. I mean, I'm biologically disadvantaged because I'm shorter than most dudes. So what? Can I complain about basketball? It's not what it is. I mean, there was a story out of Kentucky where they just banned trans high schoolers and middle schoolers from playing sports, just trans girls. And in that entire state, there's one known trans athlete
Right.
And it's a little girl in middle school, and she wanted to start a hockey league, but there was no hockey league available because there was only 3 people signed up. So she got together her whole group of friends, and they finally actually got enough people to participate. They get the sport up and running, and she can't play. And then finally her coach, finds a way to let her play, and then she gets banned. She gets banned from the legislature after she went there to tell them, listen, this is a sport that nobody wanted to compete in. I helped save the sport. I'm responsible for this team, essentially, me and my 2 friends, and I just want to play. It just helps me hang out with my friends. This is what we want to do. It helps me mentally. If you ban this, then if you ban me from this sport, it's going to hurt me mentally because this is how I cope. And
Didn't
they did
that
it.
Republican governor, he also said that because he vetoed a bill like this. He said there's 4 trans athletes like at a really low level. All they want to do is just play with their friends. Why would I like enforce this law? And it's surprising from a Republican to do that.
Yeah.
But it's like, but it shows what like a non-issue it is. Like it's not even an issue. We're like, why? It's just obviously, like I said, Trojan horse for other stuff to push just general transphobia.
I have a
and stuff.
theory,
Yeah.
and it's just how I've always felt about it, and that is the ones who scream the loudest are the ones who have the most to hide. I've always maintained that, and look, there are a lot of people who are in the closet. There are a lot of people who don't, who can't live with their truth, and that really drives them insane.
There's some sort of self-loathing. If you're a content human being, you don't concern yourself with those things of other people. Like that wouldn't be an issue for you if you're a perfectly content human being. So these are clearly malcontent people.
Like Ted Cruz gets off on humiliation. Like it's clear that he does, and that is his thing. He likes. He said Ted Cruz is not a dummy. He's not. And the reason he does what he does is because I think he enjoys basically being shit on, maybe figuratively and literally. You never know. So some people will act the way that they act because this is what their jam is. And so when people are so against gay rights or against abortion and all these wedge issues, as far as I'm concerned, the way I would throw the argument back at them is, you're gay. The reason you're acting this way is because
that Kevin Kline movie. I'm gay. You remember that?
But to me, that's really what it's about. Like the people who scream the loudest are often the ones who are basically saying, "Yeah, I'm this way too. I just hate myself for it, and I want you to feel my pain."
They're just one bathroom stall away from a scandal.
Yeah.
It always happens.
Yeah.
In the church,
Yep.
it always happens.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
The church, that's the place where there's whole purity.
Yeah.
Oh,
Listen,
yeah.
I grew up across the street from the Catholic Church, so as far as I'm
Oh,
concerned,
God.
there's
I was an
so-
altar server at a Catholic church. I went to Catholic school as well because I'm Irish background.
And you survive.
Yeah.
It was pretty good to be honest, but
But that's what I think we should do. Like going forward, that's how I would deal with them. I'd just basically say, you want to prevent everybody from living their truth. The truth is, you're not living your truth, and you're just raining hell on everybody else as a result of it. That's how I see it. I mean,
that's their worst fear, right? I mean, like the reason why we call it homophobia and transphobia is because they're quite literally afraid of the effect that, accepting queer people has on society. Maybe not them per se, although I think that Peter's 1,000% right about a lot of these folks projecting Steven Crowder, Michael Knowles, possibly. A lot of them. Steven Crowder suffers every day from gender dysphoria. There's no question in my mind. But it's also, these people with their kids. That's why I think the protect children thing works so well, because it's like when you have a child, you have this envision in your mind. And then this is what my mom kind of talked to when I came out to her. Like, when you have a kid, you envision that like white picket fence with your wife and your dog, and you're barbecuing with your 2 kids, one male, one female, and they're wearing their little ugly fucking polos like I'm wearing, it's with their slacks, you have this vision. And when your kid tells you that they're queer, it shatters that vision.
Yes.
When your kid tells you that they are trans, it shatters that original vision that you had. So it's not necessarily that they're only gay if they say a lot of gay stuff, which is definitely true and sus. It's also that like, oh, well, I don't want my kids to be indoctrinated into, this gay or trans lifestyle because I have this perfect vision for them. They're supposed to give me grandchildren and they're supposed to do this and that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a fear. Absolutely. I mean, for me, if you heard me when I was 14, you would think that if you heard me talk, you wouldn't think I was the straightest person ever. But just if you could transcribe what I said, you'd think, wow, this person really hates gay people. You know, I don't remember what the context was, but somebody said something about me being gay, like as a joke. I'm like, I'd rather die than be with a man. Because I was so self-conscious. And to me now it's like, okay, I see what I used to do when I was a small teenager. A lot of these people like Steven Crowder, that's exactly what they're doing. Like, you know, it wouldn't shock me if we saw Steven Crowder caught with like a male prostitute and meth in some hotel in the future. I don't know.
Here's hoping.
It's like and my husband says that that's total projection because like not everyone is gay. Some people are just hateful, and that's true. But there are some people who it's like, okay, you're protesting a little bit too much, and I find it strange. You know, you're saying a little bit too much about this. But like Cav was saying, to go back to the legislation, that governor who vetoed that legislation was actually the second governor to do that. And these governors had signed anti-trans laws before. But the reason why they had vetoed, well, actually, one was a healthcare ban. That was Asa Hutchinson who vetoed that, but was overridden. But he had the same logic, you know, as this last governor in Kentucky. And this was a Democratic governor, by the way. But, you know, he was overridden by the legislature. But his whole thing was, look, this is like a kid. We know of one trans high schooler. Is it really necessary to pass legislation just to fuck over that one kid? I mean, imagine being the kid who they essentially write legislation for. How shitty that's got to feel. Do you really want to do that? Even if the kid like is a threat to your daughters or something in your twisted mind? It's just, yeah, it's bizarre. We live in a weird dystopian timeline that I feel like has to be a simulation. Otherwise, like, what else is there to take away from this?
And there is, and again, I know he's not everybody's favorite cup of tea, but if you really want to see Bill Maher at his best, he did a video like 15 years ago on when Ted Haggard.
That was when he was funny. It was about 15 years ago.
When he got caught, you have to see the way he goes in on Ted Haggard and the evangelical right.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
One of the best.
He was great then.
He was.
Religulous was a great movie. It really was.
Absolutely.
And I highly recommend, and I am by no means a Bill Maher fan, but Religulous was great.
Bill will get it right every
that,
once in a while, and he definitely, when he gets that part of the culture war absolutely correct.
Yeah, the religion thing, he definitely
he really does. And
yeah.
In this instance, he's like, and they don't believe he's gay. They are just straight people who are sinning. And it's like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, it's so perfect the way that it is. And again, I have no problem saying this because I am somewhat of a constitutional absolutist, especially when it comes to separation of church and state. Religion is a mental disorder. I'm really convinced of that. I don't think there's anything wrong.
Is that in the DSM? Is that classified?
I mean, listen, I have no problem believing in God, but organized religion, yeah, it's a mental disorder.
Yeah, I take it further. I'm an atheist. I think it's all a bunch of hooey. But
yeah, and so when you project it's like, these are my beliefs and this is what I believe. No, it's not. What it is you just either hate people or you are projecting, or that thou protest too much because you're actually hiding how you really feel. You see, guys, we could solve all the world's problems if we just have these politics conversations. And so I think we should always spread the word. I think we should do this again. And
thank you guys so much for coming on. I know it's been a while.
Yeah, we could keep going, but
no. Everyone has a life, and I still don't feel well. I'm like sundowning.
Jen toughed it out tonight. She really did a great job. And a special thank you as always to Mike, because you brought us all together in the first place. So the fact that we have been able to have this
Mike's a coalition builder.
Yes, Mike's a coalition builder.
I wouldn't say that, but I'll take the label, but I wouldn't attribute that to
You are. It's important.
Yeah. You've definitely done an amazing job. You've all done an amazing job, and we should all conscientiously be trying to lift each other up, because the more we do that, the more we build the type of coalition that we're going to need to, if we're ever going to save ourselves. Because right now, not looking too good. I don't want President DeSantis, and I don't want President Trump in 24. So the more we can work together to build this non-corporate labor of love, if you will, I think this is how we're going to make it happen. So AmyeC3, The Kavernacle, Mike Figuerado, the Humanist Report.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. And we will definitely see you soon.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
They're lovely.
Aren't they?
Oh, well, yeah. The trans issue fascinates me.
But I still think a lot of it is
just... I just don't understand why people care so much. And here's the thing about the bathroom issue, okay? Like, so in theory then, what conservatives would want is me to walk into a ladies' room and there could be some big burly bearded man that happens to have a vagina, but they think that that person should be in the ladies' room. And I got to tell you, that would probably make me slightly uncomfortable. It probably would. I mean, I'm just saying. So I don't get that mentality.
And again, this is the whole thing about religion that people do not understand. Guys, we are descendants of apes. We are descendants of animals. And in nature, there are multiple sexes.
There is multiple sexes.
And being gay is very common.
Right. Well, the difference with animals is that they don't have gender identity.
Correct.
Because I don't think so. I mean, I don't think they have gender.
Female,
that's sex.
Sex. Yes.
That's sex. But I don't think other animals have gender identity.
No, I definitely agree. And I do think that ultimately it's about this is the everlasting fight amongst the religious and the secular.
Just leave the gay people alone.
But they can't help it.
Just leave the fucking gay people alone.
They can't.
It's like you could not find really the especially trans community, a more vulnerable, marginalized people.
And they're finding that, and they've been finding their voice over the last few years.
Well, and good, but it's like people, those are not the problem.
And if I may, you have to remember that a lot of times when you see the people within the gay community or the LGBTQ community, like the people that they highlight on the libs of TikTok, yeah, those people are real. And those people are also the outliers.
Right. Most, and I mean most people that are trans, they're just living and going about their lives. They're not making headlines. Yeah. They're not making waves. They just want to live their lives. In fact, trans people that I've met don't want that kind of attention because they just want to go about their lives. Sure. It's like, I just do not.
When you have over 300 million people in this country, you're going to have a few outliers. That's going to happen. You know, and I always bring it up. Sam Cedar was absolutely correct when he was on our show when he said the online left does not realize just how small their universe really is. And the truth is, most people on social media don't realize how small their echo chamber really is.
Exactly.
And social media is designed in a way that you only get a bubble mentality regarding the world at large.
It's like, I can't even imagine being in a body that doesn't correlate with what my mind says and how hard that is and how, like, why would I want to be mean to someone who already has that on their plate? Like, I just
punching down.
Yeah. Oh, it's beyond punching down. Like, I just can't wrap my head around it. People. Nobody chooses to feel that way. Nobody chooses to feel like their body doesn't correlate with their mind. That's not a position someone wants to be in. And to not be kind.
We tried to get her in, Runks. You know, obviously everybody communicates differently. We did what we could, and I think she's great, and I think they're all great. I think
it's hard when you have so many people at once.
It is. So we're trying to navigate the conversation as best we can. But again, this is. We need to do more of this. I think this is, and I think more people will be interested in the panel discussion style that we do, because I think the conversation flows better. We'll have one-on-one conversations, like we're trying to work on right now, having none other than one of my personal heroes, which is General Wesley Clark. We're in the process of making that happen.
I would have voted for him.
Oh, he was my first vote.
I would have voted for him.
So here's hoping.
Wait, what year was that?
2004. And
so I had just moved here. I'm trying to remember what that time was. Yeah.
Do you really think that Wesley Clark would have lost to George W. Bush instead of John Kerry? I don't. That's my opinion.
I was on his legal team.
I thank you for your service. I can't.
No,
he doesn't even have like a good Boston accent. It's
not right. So we have some interesting things coming up. If you weren't on before, what we have on Wednesday, we're having a really good healthcare panel.
So we're going to have Representative Ash Kalra, and yes, he has some questions to answer.
Got some splaining to do.
We'll also have on State Senator Gustavo Rivera, who is the person who put forward the New York Health Act. And in addition to that, we also have a friend of the show, very much looking forward to having back Wendell Potter, former executive at Cigna, who blew the whistle and wrote and is also an author who really details the importance of just how crooked the private insurance industry really is. So that's going to be on Wednesday. And then on Friday, Jen and I are heading out to Cleveland to help Nina Turner bring it home. We'll be there for Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
We'll be canvassing hard on Saturday and Sunday.
Yep, both. Well, maybe even all 3 days. I mean,
we'll see what time we get there, and I'm going to see how I feel.
Yeah,
that's what's going to happen. But I know I don't even sound like me. Like I feel froggy. Am I froggy? I feel froggy, and my nose.
I think you'll be good by Thursday.
I just got a text from someone, anybody who hear it from, State Senator Lauren Book, who's running for re-election here, and her sentence is, as a mom, sexual assault survivor, and the Senate Democratic leader. Let me tell you, if you have to throw in that you're a sexual assault survivor into your sales pitch,
That's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good.
To me, that's up there with Debbie Wasserman Schultz using the breast cancer
I'm
survivor.
a breast cancer survivor.
Don't do that.
Debbie cannot speak in a public forum without mentioning that.
So now Lauren Book is playing the sexual assault survivor. Here's the thing, Lauren, get this. I have not met an adult woman that hasn't been a victim of some form of sexual assault. Not one. Not one. I don't know a single adult woman that hasn't been violated in one form or another. So playing that card, it's not going to help me vote for you. Not that I would have voted for you anyway, but this doesn't help.
Yeah. Barbara Sharif is going to have a lot of fun, basically not bringing up your record, but bringing up the fact that your entire political career, and again, I don't know you, Lauren, I'm not going to judge you, but a lot of people do not like your father.
And again, I wouldn't hold that against her. And the truth is, we're not supporting Barbara Sharif either. Like we're not proponents of either way. I just don't appreciate people playing cards. That's a card. That you're a sexual assault survivor. That's horrible for you. So are most adult women. And it doesn't make us like you more for playing that card. Tell me what you've done for me lately.
What have you done in the Senate that?
Well, nothing in Florida. Democrats in Florida do nothing.
No, but what you can do, and this is the thing that we talk about with elected representatives, is what have you done at the local level?
Yeah.
You are a state senator. You have a lot of influence. There are initiatives that you could be taking. I would love to see you promoting some type of environmental initiative. Could be community gardens, composting. We're going to have the gentleman from Renewable come on the podcast and talk about that organization that's based in Hollywood. There are so many things that you could be doing.
Yeah.
But if your knee jerk is to just talk about, I'm a mom
and a survivor.
I'm a survivor, and I'm the Senate Democrat.
Take your identity politics back to the 90s,
You've got to stop with that. Like, that's not going to solve problems. It's not. And considering how DeSantis is completely running roughshod over the state, you got to come up with something better.
Well, the reality is the Democrats have nobody. They don't have anybody that can beat him for governor, and we don't have anybody that can beat him for president if that's the person they put up. The Democrats have nobody. They really don't. And it's by choice. It's by choice that they have nobody. They could have people.
And if you want the best example of it, the fact that Dianne Feinstein is still in the Senate is a prime example of how the Democratic Party over the last 40 years deliberately suppresses progressive youth support or up-and-comers within the party.
Well, that and the fact that they've been like covering for her sort of mental incapacity for so many years, and the fact that we know that now and she's still there.
And the San Francisco Chronicle had the balls to write that article, that because California's getting old, Senator Feinstein should stay there. I'm thinking, they really put that out there?
Here's the thing, though. This is the thing that's the good news, people. Those people, they're going to die sooner than later. And that will, unfortunately, for some of those people like Pelosi and Schumer and Feinstein, we just got to wait for them to die off, I guess. But fortunately, well, that's what it seems to be. And it's unfortunate, but our voters are just getting registered to vote, and their voters are all dying off. So that's the truth. You know, I mean, I just can't fathom how we keep somebody in there and they support somebody who they have said they've been covering for her mental incapacity. And we should elect her? I mean, well, we have Biden. I think they're covering for his mental incapacity. I don't think he's completely mentally there either. He just turned around and shook hands with nobody.
Yeah,
that's a problem, people.
So remember, guys, the night is darkest just before the dawn. So a lot of these things that are going on right now, the futile view that things seem to be, they are going to get better, because what we do is focus on the things that we can do in order to make it better. So we hope you enjoyed the stream. Definitely spread the word. Jen will hopefully feel better on Wednesday. It's a very important conversation because universal healthcare is coming, guys. I know it doesn't seem like it is at the moment, but
It is.
we're going to get there.
Oh, it's
Because
inevitable.
people are aware. And the fact that you've got people on the right now, we've got a lot of work to do. We're going to talk to Wendell about what could be done on the GOP side.
Well, I was going to say, when I was on that Discord thing, and it was a conservative, the guy who was moderating it was definitely more GOP oriented, and he supports single payer healthcare.
There you go.
So, and these were people that were concerned with genitalia, but they definitely, a bulk of them supported single payer healthcare. So once you get into the fiscal aspect of that, it's better for us financially to have single payer healthcare. It's a lot. You don't have to focus on the moral issue. They don't care about the moral
unfortunately, the where things are going to hit a roadblock in getting everything through regarding universal healthcare is going to be on the wedge parts when it comes to LGBT, transition, when it comes to abortion. There are going to be issues that are going to be there that they're going to try to dig their heels in, and they may win some of those battles. But to be able to go to the doctor a few times a year, and if God forbid you have to go to the hospital, that has to be free. It has to be built into our system.
GoFundMe is not an insurance option.
It is not, and never will be.
Well, and here's the thing about the abortion issue, and this is what I said when people want to argue about the abortion and when I think life began. They asked me these
Life
questions.
begins at erection.
What I said is what I believe. What I believe about it is irrelevant. It really is.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I unequivocally support a woman's right to choose. However, if I didn't, let's say I'm pro-life, I can't say that I support democracy and then try to push the minority agenda. And the fact is, most people, and I mean most people in this country, support a woman's right to choose in one way or another. They do. So when you meet someone who's very, very anti-choice, you don't have to debate the issue. It's irrelevant. Do you believe in democracy? And if so, is that a majority rule situation? Because that's what it is. And in a majority rule situation, right now, choice would just be the answer. Overwhelmingly. So I don't need to debate when life begins. It's irrelevant. Most people want this, therefore that should be the policy. It's that simple.
That's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. But unfortunately, Scat, we don't agree. Healthcare is a right, whether you like it or not.
One day I'm going to know who that is.
Yeah.
And guys, I know. One day I'll figure it out. I'm going to start piecing it together and I'll figure out who Scat Muncher is.
Blue, he'll definitely be, Gustavo's great.
Yeah,
so
he is.
We're looking forward to having him back. We're looking forward to everybody.
And I really want to hear the sort of the juxtaposition between California and New York.
And let us know if you guys like the format of, doing like a panel type discussion.
Everyone likes that.
If you guys like it, then we're going to make a more conscious effort to make that more of the norm going forward. So with that said, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for your support.
My name is Declan. Yeah. Your name is Declan.
And we'll see you all on Wednesday.
As long as it's not Sarah Bomberger.
Have a good night, guys.